Hello and welcome to Sex Part. Today I'm gonna continue the story What If Deku Ate the Devil Fruit Part 8. If you enjoy this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
Itsuka was worried as she looked at her cell phone. Izuku had sent her a text message telling her where he was, but it didn't say why. Itsuka thought it was a call for help, like an SOS. The only thing that stopped her from going to help was that Hosu City was 2 hours away by train. Izuku, the girl prayed, please be safe. She told her intern, come on Battle Fist. Stop looking at your phone and get your ass here. Don't waste time dallying. Itsuka yelled, coming, as she slid her phone into the clip on her utility belt. The hero smiled and said, good, now let's see who we can kick. Maruko is Japan's number 7 hero, and Itsuka was able to get an internship with her. The last day to look for an internship was over when Maruko made her an offer out of the blue. She eagerly took it without telling anyone who she picked. Maruko was famous for not working for anyone or having a team. She believed that heroes who did that were weak because they had to rely on others to beat the bad guy instead of using their own strength. Her offer of an internship was a surprise. For Itsuka, though, an internship might not have been about working together as much as it was about showing someone the way. To be honest, she looked up to Maruko a lot, just like Izuku looked up to All Might. The most powerful woman in Japan offering her a job as an intern. It would be silly for her to say no. Hey, Maruko, Itsuka said when she caught up to her, I'm interested. Why did you send me an offer? Just felt like it, Maruko said. Saw your fight in the sports festival and thought you'd be pretty strong, especially your second fight. Itsuka asked, with Izuku. Why not send an offer to him too? I considered it, but I figured with so many offers to him, it didn't matter, thought Maruko. Itsuka said in a deadpan voice, he only had 10, which made her trip for a second. What, really? How? Oh, right, that interview with Endeavor. Damn, the boy must have talked badly about him. I should have sent him one for that, Maruko exclaimed, slapping her hand together. Anyway, let's finish patrol and go home later. Maruko also chose to work from home instead of renting an office space for her business. She could afford it, though, because she was so good at what she did. When it came to Ochako and Momo, they responded the same way Itsuka did. They both felt bad about Izuku and wanted to run to where he was right away, but they were too far away. Izuku could handle anything that came up, they could only pray. Suyu would have felt the same way if she hadn't been so focused on a bad guy that she missed her phone ringing. Stain looked warily at Katsuki and Shoto when they got back to Hosu. They had just made it in time. One after the other. A lot of people are in my way today. About time, Izuku said with a grin as he saw Shoto using his left side freely. Get over being a little dad, Katsuki yelled. Shoto didn't answer Katsuki's comment. Instead, he told Izuku, it took me a few seconds to figure out your message, since all you did was ping us with your location. But you wouldn't do that for no reason, so that can only mean one thing. Shoto sent Stain an ice wave, but he quickly jumped out of the way and threw himself into a wall. Native, Tenya, and Izuku were standing where the ice wave went up and then down, sliding them down. Shoto then shot Stain with another blast of fire, which he avoided by kicking off the wall. Shoto said, it means you needed help. Don't worry, the pro heroes will be here in a few minutes. As his flames melted the ice he had made, the 3 paralyzed people slid down towards him. Someone's time will be up soon, Stain thought to himself as he clicked his tongue. When Katsuki came up behind her, his hands were full of explosions. Don't forget about me, asshole, he yelled. As Stain dove under the left hook of explosions, his blade came up with a sickening gleam, making him spin. Katsuki quickly set off another explosion to change his speed as the blade cut right through the gauntlet. He just barely avoided being killed by the blade's deadly bite. Katsuki moved quickly to get next to Shoto. He gave his shield a quick shake, letting the pieces fall. Like, tch, too shallow, Stain said as he swung his sword to the side. Listen, both of you. You can't let him get near your blood. He paralyzes his opponent's actions by ingesting their blood orally. That's how he got us all. Izuku told him. So he sucks blood to keep people from moving. Explains all the blades, said Shoto. Then let's stay away from them. Katsuki growled as he narrowly avoided getting hit in the face with a knife. His hair was cut. Shoto wasn't so lucky. As he tried to avoid, a knife went through his cheek. Right away, Stain was on top of them with another knife in his left hand. You have some good friends, Ingenium. Stain said with a grin as he swung at Shoto, but Shoto blocked it with a thick wall of ice. Both Katsuki and Shoto looked up when Stain did, even though they didn't mean to. Stain grabbed Shoto by the collar and pulled him closer while sticking out his tongue to lick the wound. Both of them saw his sword spin in the air. Shoto quickly set his left side on fire, which pushed Stain away. Stain jumped back quickly and caught his blade in the air. He then dodged another blow from Katsuki and cut through a barrage of ice from Shoto. Shit, this guy's not fucking around, Katsuki said roughly. Being able to fool his opponent with a simple move and make them look away at a crucial moment. This opponent was very good at controlling what the other person did. Shuto said, he's strong, as he wiped the blood off his cheek. Katsuki turned around and saw that Izuku had cuts all over his body. He thought about it for a while before making up his mind. Half and half, got any medicine for cuts? Shoto took a small capsule with medicine inside and put some on his cheek. Yay, some, he said. Go fucking help out Deku, said Katsuki. Idiot's bound to have bandages in his utility belt. Bind it so he's not bleeding all over the damn place. Shoto looked back at Izuku and saw that he did have several cuts and that blood was still coming out of them. Shoto asked, do you think you can handle it by yourself? Katsuki said, I can hold this jerk back for long enough. Fine, Shoto said, but I'll do what I can to help you. He then quickly knelt down to bandage Izuku's wounds. Bakugo said he could hold Stain back but not win, Izuku said with a frown. That wasn't like the sure of herself Katsuki he knew. What the hell did he do? Oh yeah, he trained with Gran Torino, Izuku thought back. He must have made you less cocky after beating you up so many times and losing every time. Hell, I'll beat him up and win, Katsuki said. Izuku winced and said, don't worry, he's still the same. Tenya yelled, why are you all doing this? Please stop. I inherited my brother's name. I have to do it. That guy is mine. Shoto said, you inherited it. That's strange. The Ingenium I saw before didn't have that look on his face. Tenya stopped talking and asked, so there's a lot going on in your family as well, huh? Katsuki yelled as he bowed his head and threw himself at Stain. Forget about that shit. If we let you go on with your shit, you'll lose and get killed. And if you lose, then we lose because we let you go. And I don't lose, I only win. When Stain swung his sword down at Katsuki, he meant to cut him in half. He yelled, foolish to charge at someone who's faster than you. Bakugo had his arm to the side and blasted himself sideways before the blade even started to fall. This made it easy for him to avoid the blade. Stain turned around quickly to meet Katsuki, but he was already coming at him from off the wall. Katsuki slammed on the brakes as he thrust his hands forward to set off another explosion. This time, he did this to attack Stain from a distance and also to turn himself away from Stain and toward the ground. When Stain tanked it, he clenched his teeth and turned around to look for Katsuki. But as soon as he hit the ground, he was out of sight. Before Stain could hear the sound of ice moving toward him, he let out an angry growl. Stain quickly turned around and cut the ice barrage into pieces with his sword. His eyes got really big. Shoto set fire to his right side and got ready to attack Stain again with flames. When Shoto heard the sound of explosions again, Stain quickly pulled out a few knives and got ready to throw them at his arm to stir him up. These people are getting annoying. Stain yelled as he quickly adjusted himself and threw one knife at Shoto and the other at Katsuki. Shoto avoids the knife just in time, but gets a cut on his arm. Katsuki barely avoids it, getting a cut on his face. Come on, move, get up, Izuku told himself, trying to move even though he was paralyzed. He felt his finger twitch in surprise all of a sudden. Stain had moved himself so that he was already diving down at native while Shoto and Katsuki were not in the right place to stop him. The hunter Stain said, You two are pretty good. As he pointed his sword at his main target in the moonlight. Out of the blue, Izuku was moving around and kicking down walls to get to Stain. Without waiting for Stain to react, Izuku grabbed him by the scruff of his shirt and began spinning, throwing him hard to the ground. He didn't want to be close to Stain any longer than necessary. She winced and said, "Damn, the kids must have O-type blood." She then flipped backwards to avoid Katsuki's explosion. "I can move normally again," Izuku said with a smile, but he quickly frowned because all of his wounds hurt at the same time and he felt a little dizzy. "A time limit?" Shoto thought. "No, the kid should have been the last one he got. I can't move yet, and neither can the other kid," he said. When Katsuki landed next to Shoto, he yelled, "Get back and bandage your wounds, idiot. You're a walking target for this sword fucker. Been practicing and copying from Gran Torino?" Izuku asked as he did what he was told and pulled out a roll of bandages from his utility belt. Before he helped Katsuki, Shoto could only bind a few with the things he had. Shoto asked Izuku, "So how did you get free?" as he started to bandage the most obvious wounds to stop the blood from leaking out. "He takes in a person's blood to keep them from moving. Since I got free first, I can only think of 3 reasons. The effectiveness lessens as he uses his quirk on more and more people, the amount ingested is proportional to how long it comes to effect, or the effect differs on a person's blood type," Izuku thought. "First and last one sound more plausible," said Katsuki. "You're bleeding like a fountain there. It couldn't have been hard for him to get a good amount of blood." "You're a fucking O-blood, aren't you?" Native asked. "What is your blood type?" "Mine is B." Tenya said. "I'm type A." Many people had failed to even guess what Stain's quirk was, but someone had figured it out so quickly in the middle of a fight. This made Stain smile. And especially from a group of heroes to be. He could really respect that, even though one of the people fighting him now was someone he thought was fake. "Blood type. That's right," Stain said, rewarding them by letting them know what his quirk was. "Even if we do know what his quirk is, he's still not an easy opponent," said Shoto, closing his eyes. "I'd say we should just carry the 2 out, but his reaction speed is insane to say lightly. Maybe even faster than Bakugo's. Like hell it is, Katsuki, but with a much higher training standard. He can avoid my fire and ice and Bakugo's explosions. He's also capable of dodging and countering my attacks, too," Izuku said, bandaging a wound. "That's how I got so many cuts. I had a feeling that ingesting my blood would have activated his quirk, so I tried to give him no time to drink my blood. He still got me by leaving himself open on purpose, tanking a knee to the chest before paralyzing me. So in short, we either hold him down until pros get here or we kick his ass," said Katsuki. "You finish bandaging up and stay back. I got this." "I'll support," said Shoto. "You focus on binding your wounds and catching your breath before helping us, otherwise you'll be a liability if he can paralyze again. I know from the looks of it, you've lost quite a bit of blood, too." "The 3 of us will protect them," Izuku said, standing up and almost falling over. He caught himself on the wall because he was feeling a little dizzy. "I can still support. 3 versus 1, huh?" Stain asked as he lowered himself to fight. "Won't be that easy." When the fight started, Izuku raised his right arm, holding back his index and middle fingers with his thumb. He then flicked his 2 fingers together with one for all at 60%, firing an air cannon at Stain that he avoided. Katsuki rushed forward right away to face him head-on. Before the fight, Shoto couldn't help but think about the news story about Tenya's brother being taken to the hospital. He knew that holding on to anger was bad for you and that it made it hard to see things clearly. When someone finally got past it and freed themselves from its chains, it felt so good. To get through it so that he can learn from the best, which in this case was his dad. Shoto hit Stain with another ice path, which he easily broke through. Izuku was able to stand up again and charge forward, which made Stain frown. He seemed to speed up all of a sudden, and his movements became more dangerous than before. Shit, he's not playing anymore, Katsuki thought as he narrowly avoided being stabbed in the face and saw a chunk of his hair fall off. 13 years old Tenya moaned, "Please stop. I'm all ready," as tears fell from his eyes. Shoto clenched his teeth and fired another round of fire to help them. Then he yelled at Tenya, If you want us to stop, then stand up. As Izuku and Katsuki surrounded him and threw something into the air, Stain changed his plan at the last minute. Both boys looked up and turned pale when they saw what they saw. They then threw themselves to the sides. Two small things exploded above Stain, sending steel shards at the two people who were just there and moving them around while Stain ran toward Shoto. Shoto roared as he fired another burst of flame and said, "Be the hero you want to be." Tenya looked up in shock. As the hail of fire and ice hit Stain, he quickly dodged it and got closer to Shoto without slowing down. Tenya's thoughts started to race as soon as he heard this. Even though the name Ingenium was supposed to bring honor to his brother, it was stained with anger and the blood of his classmates and friends who were there to protect him. To get a lecture from a bad guy who ruined his brother's chances of becoming a hero. It was the same test for admissions again. He had learned not to be so selfish, right? What was different this time? Instead of points, the sacrifice was putting his friends' lives in danger. He didn't want to admit it, but Stain was right that he was being selfish. A hero wouldn't have done that. Shoto attacked Stain, and Tenya's hand started to clench with anger. Stain easily dodged it again, closing the gap in an instant. "Hasn't anyone told you? You're too focused on your quirk. It's made you careless." Stain yelled as he slashed right at Shoto's shoulder, planning to cut off his right arm. "He's a bad guy, is that it?" Shoto thought as he tried to jump back to avoid getting hit. He knew he wouldn't make it in time. Izuku yelled, "Todoroki," as he stood back up. "If I don't get up now, I'll never be able to catch up to them. Either them or my brother." Tensai yelled in his head as he finally got up, his quirk engines revving up even more. When Stain thought about what was going to happen, he mentally clicked his tongue. Tenya yelled, "Recipro burst," and his engines roared back at him. Tenya kicked Stain's sword and broke it in half in an instant. Stain couldn't angle his blade to block or deflect the kick's force, so he wasn't surprised when it broke. When Tenya kicked, he hit with just the right amount of force and at a weak spot on his katana. Tenya used the momentum from his spin to hit Stain with a roundhouse kick. Stain was able to block it by raising his arms, but not before it sent him skidding back away from them. Shoto said, "You got free? That quirk isn't as great as I thought." Tenya slowly stood up and said, "Todoroki, Midoriya, and Bakugo, this had nothing to do with you three. I'm sorry." Again with this, Izuku asked with a blink. "That's why I can't let you three bleed any more than this," Iida said as he looked up, his eyes filled with new resolve. Before calling Iida out, Stain laughed and said that people couldn't change so quickly, no matter how they looked, and that Iida would always be a fake who put his own wants ahead of others, just like so many heroes before him. Tenya shook his head when Shoto tried to deny such a claim, hoping Tenya wouldn't back down. "No, he's right," said Tenya. "I have no right to call myself a hero, but even so, I cannot give in. If I give in, then the name Ingenium will die." Tenya made this statement with so much passion and determination that it made Stain mad right away. Stain hissed, "Out of the question." His eyes were getting very angry and almost crazy. Shoto saw that Stain had changed, so he quickly fired another powerful stream of fire at him to catch him off guard. "Idiot, the hero killer is after me and the kid in white armor, right? Just take him and run," Native said loudly. Shoto called up more ice walls and thought, "It doesn't look like he'll give us that chance." He pointed out that Stain had easily avoided his attack by slamming his sword against the wall when he jumped and standing on top of it before jumping to attack them, so he knew something had changed. "He's flustered," he said. Shoto was also thinking about what was going on. The quirk itself wasn't very strong, especially when there were a lot of enemies around. Even though he had a plan to leave if things didn't work out, Stain was still desperately trying to kill Native, Tenya, and maybe even Katsuki, all while running out of time. Shoto thought to himself as he fired another stream of fire at Stain, he is crazy determined to reach his goal. Tenya tried to move forward, but the engines on his legs stopped working. Tenya looked down and thought that the kick he had just done might have hurt the radiator. Tenya asked Todoroki, "Can you change the temperature?" "Not used to it with my left." "Why?" Shoto asked. Tenya begged, "Freeze my legs without unplugging the exhausts." Stain raised his arm and was about to throw his knife at Shoto, but Katsuki walked up to him. Katsuki yelled, "Don't fucking forget about me, you asshole," as he hit Stain with a good palm strike, which set off an explosion. After tumbling to the ground, Stain used his momentum to backflip back up to his feet. Just as he looked up, Izuku kicked him, but he quickly leaned back to avoid it. As soon as Stain tried to stab Izuku, Katsuki rushed at him and he had to dodge. Katsuki just missed him, but he kept going as he kicked off the ground and jumped towards the wall to keep the pinball moving. If Stain was having trouble with one, he was really having a hard time when Izuku joined in and started jumping from wall to wall and attacking every once in a while. That's not good. Stain raged because he could hardly keep up with the two boys as they moved. He could only make out green and blonde streaks going by, but Stain could still read it, even if it was very hard. He started to carefully attack, and it didn't bother him that his attacks weren't hitting. They were going to the place he told them to. And right now, Stain finally got the streaks to crash into each other in the air right in front of him. That was fun, he thought. As Stain slashed down, his broken sword was already raised in front of him. He planned to kill the two annoying bugs. He thought about them running into each other, losing their balance and getting their limbs tangled up. However, as his blade fell, he saw that things were very different from what he thought they were. Katsuki and Izuku had, in fact, hit each other, but not in a tangle of limbs. Instead, they had hit each other in the mirror. Their knees were bent, and the bottoms of their shoes were pressed together. They were both pressing one palm against the other. The way they were standing was pretty much the standard way to land from a high place. In the next split second, they pushed off of each other, cutting off the blade completely, and landed on either side of Stain. Izuku yelled, "Bakugo, now!" Katsuki yelled back, "Don't tell me what to do." They both spun as they hit Stain in the ribs with a spin kick. Katsuki was able to loosen his boots enough for his bare foot to hit Stain in the ribs, but Izuku had power because he was using one for all at 50%. Katsuki let his foot blow up when it hit something. Stain gasped in pain as he was thrown through the air. At the same time, Shoto had finished freezing Tenya's legs without blocking the exhausts as asked. "This time, I'll finish this not as someone who wants to get even, but as a hero, just like Ingenium should be." Tenya yelled in his head as the engines on his leg came to life. "Recipro extend!" Tenya yelled as he shot up into the air and hit Stain right in the face. Stain tried to turn around to deal with Tenya, but it was too late. His eyes got bigger. Tenya twisted his whole body around as his engines boosted his speed and power. He then hit Stain in the head with a vicious roundhouse kick. Stain's neck snapped to the side, and he almost passed out if he weren't so stubborn. With a crazy roar, Stain swung his sword at Tenya, who was stuck in the air and couldn't do anything. Still, Tenya clenched his teeth and was ready to take the hit if he could hit Stain again. As the blade got close to Tenya's head, he felt like he was being pulled down just enough to avoid being hit. When Stain opened his mouth wide in shock, he saw Izuku's arm already reaching out to grab Tenya's back and pull him down. Tenya yelled, "End of it now," as he used his other leg to kick Stain in the ribs, which sent him flying even higher. Also, it was just in time because his engines were beginning to slow down after the last kick. Shoto yelled, "Now's my chance," as he fired another burst of fire at Stain, killing him completely. Izuku called Tenya back to him and caught him. He then quickly put Tenya on his feet. They were all wary as they looked up at Stain, not sure if he would still attack them. Shoto threw an ice pillar at Stain, trapping him inside. He watched for a reaction but didn't see any. When they saw that Stain was really asleep, they all let out a sigh of relief. The fight was over. The four boys quickly started taking off any weapons they could find on Stain and then tied him up with a rope Shoto had found nearby at a trash dump. Izuku noticed that Stain was wearing some of the newest light ballistic body armor, which would explain why he could take a lot of damage. Indian was finally able to move again after getting quick medical care for his wounds. After getting bandages on all of them, they slowly walked back into the streets, with Native pulling Stain behind him. He insisted, saying it was the least he could do since he had been useless to them. Only a few minutes left in the fight. The people with Gran Torino saw the Nomu that Endeavor had burned stand back up on all fours, panting in pain. When it started to shoot flames like Endeavor, they quickly jumped back. They already thought it might be an absorb and release quirk. It didn't bother Endeavor that Gran Torino told them that it had a lot of strange habits. Such a small bothersome thing wouldn't even bother him. Endeavor was about to defend himself when Nomu tried to pounce on him, but Gran Torino sped past him and broke through Nomu's desperate attack. It then quickly changed direction and rushed right at Nomu, crushing it under his feet and cracking the pavement below it. Gran Torino moaned to himself, "I cracked the road. It's been a while, so my control isn't that great." As Endeavor put out the flame on his hand, he huffed, "Huh, you're not bad, honored elder." They were about to do something when they heard another squeal of pain close by. They turned to see what it was. "You boys should pay attention to what's going on around you," the old woman said. Under her cane, she saw another Nomu stuck against a wall that wasn't there before. "This little one was trying to sneak around all sneaky-like," she said. "An invisibility quirk? No, more of a camouflage quirk," Endeavor said as he watched different parts of the creature's body change color. Yes, Rakai waved as she kicked the Nomu in the head, making it fall over. Clearly, this one wasn't made to last, but to be stealthy. The three people heard another explosion and then looked further away, where they could see the glow of a fire. Endeavor frowned as he said that they still hadn't been able to handle it, even though there should have been a lot of heroes there. As Gran Torino suggested that they all go there, Endeavor hummed as he thought of his son running off to somewhere else, spitting out a place. His son telling him that he trusted him to get things done quickly where he was needed shocked Endeavor the most. Endeavor felt a little proud that his son had at least paid some attention to him at that point. Before running over to the explosions, Endeavor quickly gave Gran Torino and the old lady the address in the hopes that they could help his son get out of whatever trouble he was in. "Well, shall we?" Gran Torino asked his friend with a bow. The other person shrugged and said, "Go ahead. I'm not exactly a hero." "You aren't, but, Gran Torino stuttered, cursing himself for not seeing what to say. In a way, she was a vigilante, because she had broken the law. "Oh, relax, I didn't use my quirk at all," said the old lady. "My quirk is sonar, which means I hear better than a lot of people. And you can't exactly prove that I used it as it passively already increases my hearing. Not to mention I was defending myself against a threat. You wouldn't tell the police about little old me, would you?" Along with a hum, Gran Torino said, "I see. Then may I at least have your name? Just for personal reasons?" The woman hummed, "I don't see why not. It's Rakai." "Rakai, why does that name sound like it's been used before?" Gran Torino thought before he saw Rakai reach out and give him a piece of paper. It made Gran Torino wonder, "What's this for?" As he took the paper. "My home phone number if you want to reach me," said Rakai. "I don't carry a cell, and I'm usually at home in my dojo. I could hear your heart beating loudly, and it sure wasn't from fighting." Gran Torino jumped and flushed when he heard that, but he put the paper away anyway. With her cane, Rakai asked him, "Well, don't you have somewhere to go?" Gran Torino coughed and said, "Yeah, I should go." He then took off, but not before looking back at Rakai again. As Rakai walked away, she hummed. She was planning to finish her small shopping trip when she heard another Nomu screech. As she walked around the corner, she saw another group of heroes fighting the Nomu that was spitting acid at her. She thought it was acid because the sound of the liquid splashing into the object and then hissing as it started to melt led her to believe that it was acid. Rakai sighed as she walked forward and poked the Nomu in the chin to shut its mouth. Some of these people are useless. 4 Nomus were now making things hard for Kamui Woods and a few other heroes back in the main area. Lucky for them, Kamui was able to restrain the one Izuku had punched and then punch it out of the way before its allies could try to free it. But they still had to deal with 3 more. While Kamui Woods distracted the other one, they all tried to attack one of them at the same time. The other one crashed into the ground, making a cloud of dust and debris to hide it. Manuel quickly looked around to see where it was, but to his horror, he saw that the Nomu was already behind one of the other heroes, arm raised and ready to crush the heroine to the ground. He yelled the warning, but Endeavor suddenly showed up and punched the Nomu, so he knew she couldn't do anything. Although Endeavor had gone for the ribs, the Nomu was smart enough to quickly raise its other arm in defense. This was because of Endeavor's build and his quirk, but the Nomu was still thrown away. Before the Nomu could say anything after healing its burned arm, Endeavor had already put his hands on its head. It can only heal itself up to a certain point. Endeavor thought to himself, I wonder how long it can last under the heat of my flames. He then started to burn the Nomu's head, and the flames quickly changed from orange to blue, showing that he was raising the temperature to an unbearable level. The only time he stopped was when he felt the Nomu's head and arm fall to the side. Carbonized cells cannot regenerate, Endeavor said with a smirk. Then another hero called out to Endeavor, showing that the Nomu was flying off with a hostage on board. Endeavor quickly assessed the situation and saw Kamui Woods interacting with a different Nomu. He then issued orders, telling some heroes to go to Echo Street in District 4 and then launching himself at the running Nomu. Half of them split up to help Kamui, and the other half did what Endeavor told them to do. One of the people who went was Yui. Her teachers told her that it would probably be safer there than help with the Nomu. Now, the other people with Izuku had just pulled Stain when Gran Torino came along and found them. Gran Torino quickly kicked Katsuki in the face for not doing what he said. He then slowly looked around to see Izuku and the others before more heroes rushed in. When the pro heroes saw Stain tied up and several children with minor injuries, they quickly called the police and an ambulance. During this quiet time, Tenya quickly told Izuku and the others he was sorry for involving them in his mess. Izuku and Shoto just shrugged it off, and Katsuki was about to brag when Izuku pushed her back. Shoto, Izuku, Tenya, and Katsuki let down their guard a bit because there were so many pro heroes around them. A lot of the pro heroes let down their guard because they thought the battle was over, but then the flying Nomu from before showed up out of nowhere and dove straight for them, aiming for Izuku. Gran Torino yelled, "Get down," but it was too late. The Nomu had already sunk its claws into someone. But Izuku felt someone push him out of the way before the Nomu could grab him. Izuku turned around quickly and saw Yui's hand before the Nomu grabbed her. Yui screamed in pain as the claw cut into her shoulder hard, drawing some blood. The Nomu flew up again with a big flap of its wings, this time leaving a trail of blood that hit one of the heroines and shook them all. Izuku and Tenya yelled, "Kodai," as the Nomu flew even higher. "Oh no, my quirk won't work if it gets too high." I thought Gran Torino, but he was already getting ready for his quirk. Katsuki growled as he got ready to move forward with his quirk, but he winced when the crackles in his hands went out. He jumped off a train and used it a lot to move around during his fight with Stain. As Izuku was about to use one for all to jump or even stretch to grab Yui, Stain suddenly cut free from his chains with a hidden knife that they hadn't found. He licked the blood off of one of the heroines' faces at the same time, which stunned the Nomu and made it run away to chase it. This society overgrown with fake heroes. In an instant, the Nomu's bindings came off as Stain jumped up and landed on it. He then stabbed it in the brain, killing it instantly. And the criminals who waved their power around idly. When the Nomu hit the ground, it went headfirst into the cold pavement. However, even though Yui was under the Nomu, Stain was able to free her and hold her to the side, keeping her from getting splattered by the Nomu. "All of you should be purged," Stain growled as he carefully put Yui down on the ground. This is all to make society more fair. As the Nomu slowly stood up again, Stain took his hidden blade out of his brain. The other students and Izuku were shocked that Stain was still standing after all the hits they had given him. There was no doubt that he had been unconscious for a long time, at least 1 minute. When they were getting ready for another fight, someone else called out to them. All of them turned around when they saw that Endeavor, one of Japan's greatest heroes, had arrived. "The bad guy should have been able to get away this way," Endeavor said as he ran into the scene and saw that the Nomu he was chasing was already dead, with Stain on top of it. When Stain turned around, he saw that Endeavor had just arrived. "Endeavor," Stain growled as his mask slowly fell off. Endeavor smiled as he lit his fist on fire and cocked it back to get ready to shoot Stain. He didn't see Yui behind Stain at the time. "Todoroki, wait," Gran Torino yelled in a desperate voice. Todoroki stopped his attack because he wasn't so angry that he would have ignored someone else's warning. That person was bleeding from her shoulder behind Stain. He didn't see her until she stood up. "You fake," Stain said in a harsh voice as his mask fell off, revealing his face. His nose was clearly cut off, either by him or by accident. "I must make things right." No one moved as the killing intent and conviction poured out of Stain's bodies in waves, threatening to swallow them up like a tide. Even though Stain looked really hurt, the heroes and interns couldn't even move, let alone fight back. Someone must be dyed in blood. Not even a seasoned hero like Gran Torino was aware that he took a step back. With wild eyes, Stain yelled, "I must take back what it means to be a hero. Come, try and get me, you fakes." Even a great hero like Endeavor had to take a step back when they saw this. Stain screamed, "A real hero is the only person I'll let kill me. All Might." For the heroes and interns, it felt like dark red waves were beating through them, and bright red eyes were staring at them as if to judge them all. Some of the heroes even fell backwards out of fear. Even though Stain was in front of Yui, it was the worst for her because she was the closest to them all. No one could move until, clack, like everyone else, Stain's eyes went straight to the source of the noise. Clack. Before he looked straight at Stain, Izuku took another step forward and adjusted his hat with his hand. Slowly but surely, Izuku's arms moved back into a fighting position, and he lowered his stance to get ready for another fight. Was Izuku scared, too, like the others? He was, yes, but deep down, there was another part of him that roared against it. He wished to be a hero like All Might. He wanted to keep as many people safe as possible, and giving up on this would mean giving up on his dream. And that one thing he wouldn't do. The heroes in the area felt another wave of energy come through them all at once. It was coming from Izuku. What could be said about it? It seemed like waves of bright green were hitting waves of red Stain. Desire to kill for revenge? Not at all. He's sending out killing intent to keep people safe, Stain thought, his eyes getting bigger. Not only Izuku could move, though. Slowly, Katsuki got over his fear and raised his arm. The explosions in his palms was loud. Shoto moved forward. His left arm was on fire, and his right arm started to make ice. Tenya bent down and set himself up like a runner as the engines on his legs started up again. The courage of Izuku to break out of Stain's fear motivated all of them. As for Izuku Midoriya, really, another rising hero like All Might. Stain thought, maybe the future won't be so dark. He saw a possible pillar that could be even stronger than All Might and motivate people to move instead of shaking with fear like the others, especially since it was the younger generation that was moving. Izuku took another step forward, and his foot made a loud noise that made Stain look at Izuku again. Tenya used his quirk just like he did. Tenya yelled, "Recipro burst," and pushed forward, making his engine work one more time. "You silly one. People thought you would change, crazy." Stain thought this as he raised his arms to stab Tenya, no matter what. He thought Tenya was trying to attack him. But he was way off because Tenya swerved to avoid him. Instead, he picked Yui up from the ground and ran as far away from Stain as he could before his engine stopped again. Before he heard Tenya speak, Stain could only stare at the ground in shock. "It was never my intention to fight you again, only to make sure one of my fellow classmates was safe. You were right about some things. I should focus on saving someone if I have the ability to do so instead of seeking vengeance. And for that, I thank you for driving that lesson in me," said Tenya, holding Yui in his arms. Izuku stomped on the ground loudly on purpose to take Stain's attention off of Tenya, even if it was only for a moment. The two boys had only looked at each other out of the corner of their eyes, but that was enough for them to make a plan. Hee hee. It's crazy to think that this could happen, maybe. Other than All Might, there are still a few people who deserve to be called heroes, as long as the corrupt system doesn't get them first. But with him in the lead, Stain thought as he finally passed out. The knife went out of his hand before he could finish his last thoughts. He will be the one to usher the world into a new era. The other heroes woke up when they heard the knife hit the ground. Endeavor blinked as he looked more closely at Stain and saw that his eyes were rolling up and drooling on the floor. The threat aura had gone away completely, and Stain was just standing there. Unconscious, Endeavor said. Once the interns heard that, they finally stopped being in fight or flight mode. They all fell to the ground because they were so tired. Shigaraki stood on top of a water tower and looked at all the defeated Nomus. As he went over the locations of each Nomus, he had a tighter grip on his binocular, scratching his neck more and more as he saw them defeated. As he scanned the last one, he saw Stain and, most importantly, a familiar Straw Hat student. He finally couldn't hold it in any longer, so he grabbed his binocular hard and, without meaning to, put his pinky on it, breaking it. Shigaraki told them, "Let's go back," because he didn't want to stay here any longer. "Were you happy with the outcome, Shigaraki Tamura? What do you want?" Kurogiri asked as he warped them away. Shigaraki huffed, "Stupid, ask me that tomorrow." It got dark before he could see the familiar bar again. Going to Hosu General Hospital the next day. Their wounds were bandaged, and they were all in the same hospital room. Izuku and Tenya had the worst luck. Izuku had cuts all over his body, and Tenya's were deeper. Katsuki and Shoto, on the other hand, only had a few small scratches on their faces, but they were mostly hurting from being abused so much because of their quirks. Not Katsuki, but the other three were talking about their fight against Stain. In the end, they all came to the same conclusion. Despite what Stain said and did during the battle, he hadn't really tried to kill them. It was like he had put a limiter on his attacks, whether he knew it or not. Shoto turned to Izuku and said, "But in the end, I can't believe you could stand up to him like that. That amount of bloodlust he was giving off. It made me freeze up. Not even my old man moved. But you guys did move after I managed to step forward," said Izuku. "And Iida even moved to save Kodai. Only because you inspired us all," Tenya said. "Not only that, you distracted him long enough for me to rescue her." When the door opened and Gran Torino, Manuel, and Kamui Woods came in, Katsuki just grunted and turned his back on them. "Bad boys, I have so many things to say about you all," Gran Torino muttered as he kicked Katsuki up and then walked over to Izuku and kicked him in the shin. "But first, you all have a visitor." Like those words called for him, a dog-like being wearing a black suit and tie walked in, easily taller than everyone else. The host introduced Gran Torino as Kenji Surigame, who was Hosu's chief of police. Izuku, Shoto, and Tenya were the first three boys to stand up and greet him. Katsuki did so a little later, but it took him a little longer because Gran Torino gave him a dirty look. He waved and said, "Please, there's no need to stand up, woof." "You must be the UA," Kenji said right away when he saw that the boys were still standing. "They were the ones who caught the hero killer, right?" "That's right," barked Katsuki, but Gran Torino kicked him in the shin again. Shoto asked himself, "Why is the police chief here?" His eyes got narrow in suspicion. "About the hero killer," Kenji began, then went into detail about all of Stain's injuries as well as the law and history of using a quirk without permission, no matter what the situation was. Even though Izuku Midoriya was allowed to use his quirk, his main job was to save a fellow student and not fight the hero killer. You four don't have the right permits to do that, and the fact that your teachers let you do it doesn't set a good example. Strict punishments must be given to all of you four, as well as the pro-heroes Endeavor, Manuel, Gran Torino, and Kamui Woods, Kenji said. Tenya felt ashamed when he heard this. Katsuki growled and was about to blow up when, to his surprise, Shoto went first. "Wait a minute," Shoto hissed. "Native would have died if Iida hadn't done anything. They would have both been killed if Midoriya hadn't come. No one knew that the killer of heroes had shown up. Do you mean we should have done what the rules said and watched people die? So long as everything works out, it's okay to break the rules, right?" Told Kenji to stop. "Really? What the hell? Really? It does depend on the situation, doesn't it?" Katsuki growled. "Isn't it a hero's job to save someone?" Added Shoto. "That's why you're not fully fledged heroes yet," Kenji sighed. "Gosh, what are UA teaching you? Wish and endeavor, woof." Shoto stomped forward in anger, ignoring Tenya's pleas to stop when. "Geez, you boys sure are noisy." When everyone turned around, Yui was standing behind Rakai in front of the door. "Old hag, master," greeted Katsuki and Izuku at the same time, and Izuku quickly bowed to show respect. "Brats," Rikai said as she walked right past the professional heroes, Yui following behind her. Kenny asked with a raised eyebrow, "Madam, this is a private conversation. Could you please leave?" A shrug from Rikai made them look back and see that the sliding door was open. "If it was private, then you wouldn't have the door open," he said. "Anyway," Kenji coughed, "this is a pretty important meeting." "Yeah, I'll be out of your hair in a minute after I take a good look at my disciple," Rikai laughed as he grabbed Izuku's wrist and felt his pulse. Rikai smacked Izuku on the head with her cane and told him, "You look fine, but you still have too many wounds. We need to go over more empty-handed combat against a weapon." He grunted, "If you're done, we have to finish a lecture." When Rikai spoke up, "You can stop bluffing," many people were shocked at how rude it was. Kenji began, "Miss, I promise you that within the limits of the law, these boys," but Rikai cut him off again. The articles of self-defense said that the boys could use reasonable force to protect themselves and others, as long as they had a good reason to think that force was necessary. A lot of people tend to forget about this in favor of the quirk laws. Also, it's hard to say how much force was used. But in this case, the hero killer was trying to kill them while they were focusing on capturing him, so they were using reasonable force. They cannot be charged with killing Stain because they were only trying to keep someone else from being killed. The purpose of the quirk regulation law is to keep people from abusing their quirks to get what they want. But the law also stopped vigilantism and limited what the police could do with their quirks. That's where heroes came in. Each one was given permission to use their quirk freely. What most people don't know is that this little hole in the law lets people step in and protect someone. Rikai said, "I get bored sometimes, so I have a law book in Braille that I skim through. It's true that some vigilantes go too far, but not all of them." "What do you mean I can do anything to save someone?" "Nice," yelled Katsuki, but Rikai hit her on the head. "That's not something I think you should shout to everyone. It's not foolproof, and the hole can be easily closed, jerk." The police chief's heart rate, on the other hand, shows that he is not too upset about it. After his short rant, Rikai told the boys, "It sounds like he had a plan to get you boys out of trouble." He then sat down next to Izuku. "Ahem, quite," Kenji coughed. "That was unexpected, but I guess that will be plan B in case plan A doesn't work. Still, I'm pretty surprised by that loophole. Even I, the police chief, have forgotten about it, which makes me feel bad." "Wait, what is plan A?" Izuku asked. "The version I just gave you was the official police view. And the punishment and other things would only happen if this were made public." "Woof," Kenji said. "If this were made public, people would probably cheer for you, but you wouldn't be able to get away with it. The burn scars on Stain, on the other hand, would support Endeavor being the hero who saved the day if they weren't made public. That would be the end of it, woof. Lucky for us, not many people saw what happened, so the violation would be caught there." "But what about Iida?" Worriedly, Izuku asked. "He saved Kodai with his quirk, and as you said, witnesses saw that." "Don't worry. Endeavor has said that he gave permission for his quirk to be used. In other words, any heat would hit him. But because he is strong and well-known, he wouldn't be bothered by it," Kenji said. Shoto muttered, "So the jerk gets all the credit. He wasn't happy with the outcome but didn't want to put his classmates' careers at risk over this. Either way, we also need to take responsibility for being negligent in our supervisory duties," said Manuel. Tenya quickly told Manuel she was sorry for all the trouble he had caused. Manuel gave Tenya a light chop on the head and then waved it off. "Because adults aren't fair, you won't get the praise you deserve, but at least." Kenji praised him and bowed. "As someone who also keeps the peace, I can say thank you." Shoto said, "Start with that next time," but he said it in a low voice because he felt a little embarrassed. "Well, I need to go." As Kenji left, he said, "I need to do some paperwork. I'm sure your teachers want to have a private conversation with you." "Damn right I do," Gran Torino said after Kenji left, giving Katsuki a stamp kick in the face. "Didn't I tell you to stay behind? I was so not going to stay put when you went off to have fun. I'm not a weakling that you can push to the side in times of danger." Katsuki growled as he pushed the foot off. That should be clear from my fight with the others against the hero killer. Did you ever think that the reason I told you to stay on the train was to protect the people inside and the injured hero? I'm well aware of your strength, brat. I've been sparring with you for a few days, yelled Gran Torino, putting an end to Katsuki's rant. Katsuki mumbled words because she couldn't argue with that. When Kamui Woods looked into Izuku's eyes, all he could do was sigh. You just couldn't help it, right? Kamui Woods laughed. I didn't want to turn my back on Native, Izuku said with a blush. I could have gotten Eat out, but Native would have died by the time I got him to safety and went back. He couldn't move because of the hero killer's quirk. I'm not mad at you, it's just, you and I should have gone. Heaved a sigh, we had more than enough heroes to handle the situation. No, we would have been in a lot more trouble without your help, Manuel said. You were able to capture one Nomu and keep the other one busy until Endeavor arrived. We were having a hard time with just one. Without you there, I can't imagine how many more could have been hurt or even killed. But as you'd expect from a hot rookie on the rise. Kamui Woods hummed and then asked Tenya, are you Tensai's little brother? What? Yes, why do you ask? Kamui Woods was using his brother's name in a way that Tenya found strange. He blinked in shock. Kamui Woods said, if you ever need someone to talk to, I'm always here. Tensai Iida, or the old Ingenium, is also my hero. Thank you very much for everything he has done for me. He made me the hero I am now. I know how painful it must be to see not only a family member but also a hero go out because of an injury. Tenya looked shocked at Kamui Woods and then said, it's good to see that you were able to stay away from revenge. I didn't. Really? Tenya said in a guilty voice, do that. I tried to fight the hero killer myself and failed. I would have died without Midoriya. After shaking his head back and forth, Kamui Woods said, well, then it's a good thing that you're still alive. You can learn from your mistake. Since I caught him, I had my sights set on getting revenge too. But you're younger, which makes you a little more likely to make bad choices. Who knows how many times Tensai had to calm me down when I was younger. What would Ingenium do, is something I like to ask myself when I'm not sure what to do. Once you ask that, you answer it with his voice. You know what he would have done because you're his brother. Tenya closed his eyes for a second before a single tear came out. He knew what his brother would have done instead. His brother would never have been so stupid as to go look for the hero killer by himself, and if he did find Stain, he would have called for help right away before freeing whoever Stain had taken hostage. Tenya thought, I was the one calling Ingenium's names in a bad way the most. But no longer. As I said before, Ingenium's name will live on through me. After a short conversation with Rikai, Izuku turned to look at Yui at this point. Is your shoulder okay? With worry in his voice, Izuku asked. Fine, Yui said in her usual dull voice. It will get better quickly. That's good to know, Izuku said, thank you for saving me. I was just repaying the favor, Yui said with a small smile. You kept me from getting hit by a truck. Anyone would have done that, Izuku said with a smile as he held out his hand. But thank you anyway. The harm you took was meant for me. Yui gave him a nod and shook his hand. For Yui, her mind was racing as she reached out to shake Izuku's hand. Would she fall in love with him if she did? Would the touch of his skin make her feel alive, making her enjoy his touch? She couldn't fall in love with him because that would mean betraying Itsuka, who had already called the shots. Yui blinked when her hands went around Izuku's hand. The hand felt warm, like a human hand should, but there was no spark between them, at least not that she could feel. Izuku didn't feel a spark either, because he didn't blush. It made Yui feel a little better. Does that mean it was just a temporary knight in shining armor syndrome? She asked. Izuku was strong and interesting, but she just wasn't interested in him. The more she looked at him, the less likely it was that he was her type. That wasn't to say he wasn't attractive, she just didn't want him. Tenya had just finished talking to Kamui Woods when Yui turned to him. I'd like to thank you for rescuing me from the hero killer, said Yui. It was the least I could do, Tenya said, making another chopping motion with his hands. Midoriya would have done the same thing if he hadn't helped distract the hero killer. It wasn't until Tenya did that Yui couldn't help but laugh. She hadn't really thought about it because she mostly interacted with Tenya through Itsuka, but Tenya's behavior was the exact opposite of hers. He was very expressive. He used hand gestures to show how he felt, while she was very stoic. Her facial expressions didn't change much, even when she was happy or sad. Even during the saddest movies that made other people cry, she would only sniffle a little and let out some tears. As an actress, Yui's mother taught her not to show weakness in public, and her father was in the military, so they were both very strict. Yui didn't know why she was so tough, but she thought it was just how she was raised. She was shocked when, as she shook Tenya's hand, she felt a strange electricity move up her skin. "I hope your teachers don't think we're bad for letting you get hurt. We really shouldn't have been so careless." "Yes, of course we'll be responsible for this, right?" Tenya asked as she looked at the other people. Yui leaned in close and kissed Tenya on the cheek while she was distracted. She did this with courage and speed that Yui didn't even know she had. "Then I'll hold you to it," Yui whispered in Tenya's ear as she left, giving her waist a little extra swish as she went. The other people in the room slowly turned their attention to Tenya, whose face was turning red and his glasses started to fog up. Manuel smiled and said, well, someone's a hit with the lady." Kamui Woods laughed as he took out his phone and took a picture of Tenya's current state. "I'm so texting this to Tensai," he said. Wait, that's not necessary," shouted Tenya as he tried to grab the phone, only to be grabbed by Izuku. "Let me go." This made the other people laugh, but Gran Torino could only sigh. "These kids don't know what's real," Gran Torino sighed. "Well, I guess I should leave too," Rikai said as she got up from the table. She told Gran Torino in a low voice as she walked by, "I expect a call from you soon. Don't make a woman wait." Luckily, no one saw Gran Torino turn red. If they had, Izuku would have taken a picture and sent it to Toshinori as a well-deserved threat. The morning news made the name Stain sound like it was everywhere. Even though the Nomus were talked about, the front pages were all about Stain, his capture, and what might have made him such a bad guy. He opened the newspaper in a small bar, read the article, and then slowly crumpled the paper up. It was not possible for him to make everyone forget about Stain. His Nomus were pushed to the background and only had a small role in the main story. There was no talk on the street about his Nomus or how much damage they did in one night. They were mostly talking about Stain instead. Mark up this, that, or anything else. It made him very angry. "Calm down, Shigaraki," said All for One on the TV. "Though the results were not the one you desired, you can still spin this to your advantage. There is still plenty of time for you to learn, to make mistakes, and to grow." Shigaraki said, "Yes, sensei," and then he started to think of a way to use this. A phone call arrived. A phone call arrived. As soon as Toshinori picked up his cell phone, he thought about who was calling. His company was told not to call him unless it was an emergency. Toshinori was resting on one of the beds in Recovery Girl's room after having surgery. The fact that Recovery Girl had found small amounts of his stomach was very helpful. She quickly took the cells and sent them to the lab to grow into a stomach and another lung for him. Tori asked, "Hello, it's me Brat," said Gran Torino, causing Toshinori to jump in a panic. "Katsuki Bakugo. Seriously, thanks to him, I'm getting a pay cut and my teaching license was revoked for 6 months. Well, considering the extenuating circumstances, it couldn't be helped. I don't know why you sent him to me, but he's extremely brash. Same with your Brat inheritor, where he moves without thinking, it's just like you, Toshinori. I humbly apologize. I figured young Bakugo could learn some restraint and discipline from you personally." Toshinori said sorry. "It was due to my insufficient training that I caused you trouble. If you need some money, I can wire some to you right now." I don't care about my teaching license," said Gran Torino. "I only got it to teach you so I could keep my promise to your predecessor, Shimura. Not to mention Bakugo isn't really your student per se. You were right to send him to me, as most would have catered to his ego. A good kick in the ass was needed. And I truly do appreciate what you did. I am who I am today because of your teaching," said Toshinori. Gran Torino said, "You say that, but you never come to visit on your own. The only reason you called me last time was because of that freak accident with your successor a year ago." Toshinori tensed up in response. Toshinori stuttered, "Well, it's just that my new job as a teacher is so busy." "Faye, I called today to talk to you about the hero killer," said Gran Torino. "I only saw him in person for a few minutes, and even so, he had me shaking." Gran Torino thought for a moment, to be able to scare someone like you. Then he asked, "But he's already been tied up, so what was it?" "The pressure I felt from him was probably his strong ideology, or intimidation from his obsession," said Gran Torino. "I'm not saying this to praise him, but it's the same quality as that symbol of peace title you have. To simply put it, it's charisma." Following this, Gran Torino began to talk about his worries. That his ideas would spread to the news, magazines, the internet, and any other way people talk to each other. In this era, there was a lot of suppression, which could be good or bad. People who were influenced by Stain's ideal would start to show up, and when the League of Villains showed up at Hosu, people would see a link between Stain and the League of Villains. The League of Villains would go from being a group of bad guys to a group with that philosophy. Soon, the League of Villains would have a lot more bad guys united under one banner. It would be crazy how much evil there would be. And if the leader of the League of Villains thought this was going to happen, then the general was smart and sneaky, getting rid of things that were in his way and starting things that would help him even more. They knew of only one person who could do that. The man who killed my sworn friend and your master, the previous one for all holder, Shimura, and opened that hole in your stomach. All for one must be starting to move again, said Gran Torino ominously. It was impossible for me to believe that he would live after that injury, Toshinori growled, clenching his teeth. All you can do is prepare Midoriya, said Gran Torino. Luckily he's well aware of both one for all and all for one since that freak accident, but you'll have to go more into detail with him. Speaking of him, he's got the same quality as you do, if not more. Toshinori was interested and asked, "Oh." While the hero killer froze us with his intention, the only one who could move was him. Not only that, but he inspired his own classmates to move, to ready themselves, and even rescue a girl while the rest of us grown-ups were still quivering in our shoes, said Gran Torino. You chose a good successor. But of course, Toshinori said with pride, almost changing into his muscular form to make the point clear, I saw in him the potential to rise up and beat me. It laughed and said, yeah, but he's still just a wet behind the ears brat. Don't get too cocky. Yes, sir, Toshinori sighed. Was there anything else? Well, since you said you were going to wire me some money, Gran Torino said in a low voice. Are you having monetary problems? Why didn't you say something earlier? I have a penthouse that you could live in since I'm not using it. Said Toshinori. No, I'm not having money trouble, Gran Torino quickly said. I was actually more hoping to use your influence to get me a reservation at a restaurant that I like. Toshinori smiled and said, Oh. He then asked, you have a date. Who is it? Did you finally call the person I suggested? It's about time, sensei. None of your business, Gran Torino said before coughing, but yes. A classy lady that I met by myself, thank you very much. I doubt the one you wanted to suggest to me matched my preference. Her name is Rakai. Rakai, Toshinori looked up. Is this Rakai perhaps a blind woman, uses a cane, and who also happens to be Izuku's martial arts master? The count replied, she is. I know she knows the brat, but I didn't know she taught him. Sensei, that's the person I've been trying to introduce you to, Toshinori said. It looks like I do know your preference. Shut up, yelled Gran Torino. Are you going to help me or not? I will, Toshinori laughed, glad to finally get back at one of his teachers and help him find a date. Just give me the date and time you want, but it can't be this week because I'm going to be busy. And then Gran Torino laughed and hung up. I know that brat, he said. Once his wounds were better, Izuku sighed as he went back to Kamui Wood's agency. His friends Momo, Ochako, Itsuka, and Suyu called and asked if he was okay. He told them that everything was fine. He couldn't talk about what happened on the phone because of the gag order, but he promised to tell them what had really happened. At the same time, a certain video of Stain was being shared on all channels of communication. Someone walking by took it with his cell phone. It was a little grainy, but the message was clear. It showed Stain making his point so everyone could see it. The video stopped there because the person who was recording it dropped his phone out of fear and panic, which stopped the video before Izuku could move forward. When the video first came out, a lot of people downloaded it right away, before the government could take it down. After that, there was a war going on as people shared the video with many more people before it could be taken down. One dealer in the dark web used it to promote League of Villains by saying that Stain was rumored to be a part of it. It was never brought up that Stain had turned down their offer to join. As soon as the students got back from their internships, they were all eager to share their own stories. Mina was shocked and said, "Wow, you even got to fight bad guys. I'm so jealous." "I didn't fight, but I did help people get out of there and help with logistics," Kyoka said as she twisted her earphone jack with her finger. "It's still amazing, though," Mina replied as she leaned forward on the table. "I just trained and went on patrols," Suyu hummed as she pressed her finger to her cheek, which was something she did all the time. "One time, we caught people smuggling goods from a neighboring country." Kyoka and Mina were shocked and said, "That's crazy," since neither of them had done anything half as exciting before. "What about you, Ochako? How was your week?" Suyu asked Ochako, who had a scary pink aura around her. "It was very enlightening," Ochako said. She started practicing the punches she had learned from Gunhead while taking slow, deep breaths. The girls couldn't help but talk about how she was feeling while Denki and Mina watched Ochako. "That's a big change in just 1 week," Denki said with worry. "Change? That's not it, Kaminari," Mineta told her as he slowly curled up into a fetal position and bit his fingernail. "Women are all demons. They're just hiding who they really are." As Denki grabbed Mineta by the wrist to keep him from ruining his nails with sweat, "What the hell did you see at MT? Ladies' place. I was kind of fawned over and had a good time. But the ones who changed the most, or at least went through the most, were you four, right?" Everyone turned to look at the 4 people who were talking about Stain around Shoto's desk. In that spot were Shoto, Izuku, Tenya, and Katsuki. Hanta chimed in, "Oh yeah, the hero killer. Really, I'm glad you guys made it out alive," Eijiro said. Momo looked at Izuku and said, "I was so worried." Izuku sighed because he knew they were going to ask what really happened behind closed doors. When Ochako woke up, she quickly pushed her way toward Izuku and pouted at him. Sato asked, "I heard Endeavor saved you guys, right?" Toru yelled, "That's amazing. Just what I expected from the number 2 hero." As soon as Katsuki said, "Like hell he did," Izuku and Shoto quickly shut his mouth. Shoto froze his mouth shut, and Izuku put his arm around Katsuki to stop him from moving. When the class looked at Katsuki, they thought he was going to rant about how he didn't need to be saved. Katsuki roared in anger and was about to say that he helped defeat Stain and that the other 3 were just helping him, but Izuku whispered in his ear to remind him of the gag order. Shoto looked down at his desk and said, "Yeah, he saved us." The words tasted awful in his mouth as soon as he said them. In reality, he didn't think his dad did anything. Izuku and Tenya agreed and didn't want to go any further. "I saw on the news that the hero killer was linked to the League of Villains. The thought of someone that scary coming to USJ scares me," Masharao said as he scratched the side of his head. This made a few people shiver. "Stay with the League of Bad Guys," Izuku thought as he thought about what was said. He shouldn't have killed the Nomu and saved Yui if that was the case. Maybe there's a disagreement in the group, or is there something else? The next thing that was said took Izuku's attention away from that thought before he could say anything else. Dennis asked, "He looks scary, but did you see the video?" Masharao asked, "Video? You mean of the hero killer?" "Yeah, seeing that, you can see how he's really single-minded and, like, tenacious. Doesn't it make you think he's cool?" Denki said yes. Izuku breathed a sigh of relief as the other people started to talk about the video. He had also seen the video while he was in the hospital. The person who was recording stopped right after Stain's statement, and it didn't look like they did it on purpose. The camera angle on Stain had been steady until all of a sudden it dropped and hit the floor, ending the video there. It seemed likely that the person who was recording had dropped their phone in shock. Izuku stepping forward and Tenya saving Yui from harm were not shown on the video because of this. It was easier to say that Endeavor was the one who fought and caught Stain because of this. Still, Izuku's thoughts went back to Tenya, who was busy giving a speech about how the hero killer incident would set him back on the right path of being a hero. To train for a rescue race, All Might took 1A to Gamma Field, while Shota went to another field with Hitoshi. "I hope you learned something from studying with Ms. Joke," Shota said as he took out his capture weapon. When Hitoshi thought back to when he got to Ms. Joke's agency, he blinked. "Going back. Hey, who are you? You look like Eraserhead's kid with that hairstyle and rings under your eyes." Ms. Joke laughed as Hitoshi walked in the room. Hiroshi stuttered, not sure how to start talking to Mr. Joke. "Lighten up, kid, you look like you need a good laugh, just as Eraserhead does." Ms. Joke said, "You don't want to have the same personality as him, do you? Everyone could use a good laugh. Here's one. Parallel lines have so much in common. It's a shame they'll never meet." Not being able to help but laugh a little, which Ms. Joke took advantage of and used her quirk. Not long after that, Hitoshi couldn't stop laughing out loud. His eyes got really big as he tried not to laugh, but he couldn't. It went on for 10 seconds before Ms. Joke let Hitoshi go from her quirk. "See, a good laugh never hurts," Ms. Joke said. "So where is Eraserhead? I thought he'd be coming with you." "He's busy," Hitoshi groaned as he tried to calm down. "Boo, I was hoping he'd finally come here and accept my marriage proposal," Ms. Joke complained. "Oh well, still got that date. Now come on, we got work and training for you," Hitoshi replied. "Flashback is over. Interesting," said Hitoshi. "Ms. Joke had me try out one of her custom laugh masks she uses to see if my quirk still works through it. Turns out it falls under the same category and blocks my quirk from activating when talking to someone. That'll be something to think about adding to your list of equipment," said Shota. "Be sure to head to the support course for that." "Ah, Ms. Joke already offered to have one built for me," Hitoshi said with a smile. "Said something about having you owe her another one. And she also says she expects to be wooed on her date." Shota's hair stood on end and his eyes turned red. "I see," Shota said as he walked up to Hitoshi, who was nervously pulling back. "I'll deal with that later. For now, I need to teach you a lesson." Hitoshi really wished he could have used his quirk, but Shota was too strong for him. He was glad he went to Ms. Joke's agency, though. He learned some jokes and taunts from Ms. Joke to get under his opponent's skin, as well as some ways to grapple, but Shota was not going to be hurt by any of them. Hitoshi could only cry out of fear as the fight began. Once more at Gamma Field. Now that the day's training was over, everyone was walking back to the changing room. Ochako was upset with her time and said, "It's so frustrating that I'm not that fast. I don't know how you do it, Deku." "Well, it might help you if you invest in learning parkour," said Izuku. "You usually make yourself light that you can jump far, but you end up making yourself sick. Instead you could probably lighten yourself a little and keep a constant speed in an urban environment like Gamma Field. Master Rakai had me take several sessions at another gym." Ochako smiled and said, "That sounds like a lot of fun." "Unquestionably, it would be good for you," Momo said, who was the best in her group at using skates, claw shots, and other tools. What they were talking about stopped when they got to their changing rooms. Sato took off his mask and said, "That was some tough training we just did." I puffed as I wiped off my sweat with my towel after our first class in a while. "I need to work on being able to move around better," Eijiro said to himself. Fumikage told him as he adjusted his tie, "You need to make up for it by gathering information." "That will make me fall behind everyone," Denki whined. "I wish I was as good as you and Zero. But Midoriya pretty much blew his way through with those sick moves." "Really? Where did you learn that?" "Why?" asked Eijiro. Mineta cut Izuku off before he could answer. "Hey, Midoriya, I found something really strange. Welcome." Mineta waved Izuku closer to reveal a small hole in the wall that had been covered by a poster, which had conveniently peeled off. "Look at this hole, Shawshank." It's likely because of the work of those who came before us. Yeah, you know what's next door. The locker room for girls. A few boys were interested in the discovery of a lifetime before Tenya rushed in. It's Mineta, stop it. Tenya was told, that's right, peeping is illegal. It's already a crime for my little Mineta. Mineta yelled as he tore the poster down in pieces and peered through the peephole. The big Yaoyorozu boobs of Yaoyorozu. Ashido's slim waist. Hagakuri's underwear that floats. Uraraka's beautiful body. Asui's surprise boobie. Mineta was crying in pain before he could even see what was inside the girls' locker room because Kyoka's earphone jack hit him in the eye. He didn't notice that behind him, other students had dropped or clenched their fists when a name he wanted to look at came up. Kyoka was slowly pulling out one of her earphone plugs while the other was connected to the hole above to listen in on what was being said. The only reason she did this was because Mineta wasn't exactly quiet about his plans. Kyoka wasn't sure if she was happy or not to hear that Mineta didn't say anything about her. She didn't want the pervert to come on and sex her, but hearing him not even mention any good things about her was also annoying. She knew that her body wasn't as curvy or gifted as her classmates. Kyoka's body was smaller than theirs. Because Toshinori had asked him to meet him alone, Izuku found himself in the teacher's lounge after school. Wow, you went through a lot. I'm sorry I couldn't be there, Toshinori said to start the conversation. What? Why do you need to say sorry for that, sensei? Izuku asked before realizing that Toshinori was talking about the hero killer incident. You were busy taking care of your wound. In any case, how did the tests go? Good, Toshinori said with a nod. That was enough to feed and grow my lungs and stomach. It's being grown right now, and before the summer break, it should be ready to be moved into me. But enough about me. What I really wanted to say was, one for all and all for one. Izuku took a deep breath and sat up straighter. Remember what I told you about one for all and what the people who came before you told you about it during your little episode that I gave you? Why? Toshinori asked. Izuku agreed. It wasn't something he was going to forget anytime soon. Toshinori had also told him that one for all couldn't be stolen by force, but it could be transferred by force. Toshinori spoke in a serious voice, I think it's time I told you more about all for one. Izuku was then given some background information about all for one. He was told how the first quirks caused a time of chaos for humanity and how all for one took power of Japan during this time. He was also told how one for all came from this and how all for one's younger brother passed it on. Finally, he was told how all for one was still alive despite his age and the injuries Toshinori had given him, most likely because of the quirks he had stolen over the centuries. One for all is a power that can be used to beat all for one. You might have to fight this big bad one day. This might be too harsh for you, but Izuku announced with a firm voice and focused eyes, I'll do it, I'll do whatever you ask of me, no matter what it is, as long as I have you. No, I can do anything as long as all of my predecessors are still alive. The wills of people who have come before you have come together in one for all with one goal in mind. To defeat all for one. We can do it together, that's what I think. Toshinori didn't want to tell him the truth, which was that Izuku might have to fight this battle alone when the time came. Without one for all, he wouldn't be able to, and he might end up dying young like his predecessor. But before he could say anything else, his mind went back to what Nana had said. Now go live your life, teach your successor, and don't come back until you're old and dead. But know that even if you've passed on one for all, you're never alone. Toshinori thought, she's right. Even though I gave up one for all, I'm never alone. Even if I can't fight anymore, I can still be there for him and help him win, just like Gran Torino did. A weak smile came from Toshinori to Izuku. I have faith in you. You're a lot stronger now than you were when I first got one for all. I think you'll do better than me. Not that you should, though, you still need to train. Yes, sir. Izuku saluted him. All right, get going, Toshinori said, you have a lot to get ready for. Oh, and getting ready. Itsuka said she wanted to say something to me tomorrow, on Sunday, Izuku thought as he grabbed his backpack. She said she needed time to get ready. I wonder what that's about. In a coffee shop, so everything is set, Itsuka asked as she met in secret with Momo, Ochako, and Tsuyu. The three of them nodded in response. They didn't want to wait any longer. Itsuka had persuaded Yui to tell them the truth about what had happened. It wasn't hard to figure out that Yui had been there because the video showed her at the scene. Yui gave them general details about what had happened, saying that the 4 boys in 1A had caught Stain and that she was part of the gag order. She also told them about how they all ended up in the hospital, with Izuku getting a lot of cuts but Tenya having more serious injuries. She wasn't there herself, but she thought that all 4 of them had fought Stain. When Itsuka learned that, she could no longer hide her feelings. They were in a dangerous field where their lives were at risk. She knew that one of them probably wouldn't die, but that was what pushed her to confess. It was what pushed them all, especially Tsuyu, because she had been on a dangerous mission during her internship. "I've texted Izuku to meet us tomorrow afternoon at Dagoba Municipal Beach," Itsuka said. "This should give us plenty of time to get some sleep and gather our courage." Everything the girls did was nod until Ochako made a point. "What will happen to the other people if he picks one of us? Poor Ochako, why did you bring up that awkward subject?" They had been ignoring it. For a split second, none of the other girls knew what to say until Momo cleared her throat. "We continue as we always have been, good friends," said Momo. "We swear that we won't jealousy get in our way of our friendship that we've built here." Tsuyu agreed and said, "Hiro, that sounds fair." "Then we all agree," Itsuka said with a firm nod. "Tomorrow for sure." Sunday. Izuku complained as he walked to Dagoba Beach. "Don't know why mom made me dress up." He told his mom that he was leaving to meet up with Itsuka and the others after getting back from the gym and taking a shower. Izuku was shocked when Inko yelled, "What do you think you're wearing, young man?" Street clothes?" Izuku asked as he looked down at his t-shirt and shorts. Izuku was pushed back to his room by Inko, who then went through his closet and pulled out his collared shirt and semi-casual pants. "You're going to look nice on your date today." "What is this, Mom? It's not even a date yet," Izuku said with a blush. "Yet," Inko said sharply with a grin. "You know what I mean," Izuku said. "I told you, Itsuka wanted to see me today. That's all to it." Momo, Ochako, and Tsuyu were also there. They probably just want some information about the Hero K test. The hero test that's going to come up. Izuku hadn't told his mom about what happened with Stain, and he was going to do his best not to tell her about it. She already had enough stress in her life. For better or worse, Inko had only been thinking about one thing. That there would be 3 more girls. Of course, you'd think it was just a place for friends to hang out. But Inko's mind chose to see that in a different light. "Oh my," Inko said, "I didn't know I raised such a player. 4 girls at once? And at the same time?" Izuku's face went through a red area and into an unseen realm. Izuku finally got over his blush as he walked toward the beach. It took him a while. Izuku quickly found the others, who were lying on towels and enjoying the sun. "Hey," Izuku yelled as he ran over to them. "You guys wanted to see me." Itsuka yelled, "Izuku," and jumped to her feet quickly. It didn't take long for the other girls to get up and start combing their hair. Izuku was interested and asked, "So what's this about? Did you want to know more about what happened with Stain?" Itsuka said in a serious voice, "Yes, we'll talk about that later. For now, we need to tell you something important." "All of you?" Izuku asked with a blink. "What's the big news?" Momo said, This is kind of hard to say. What we want to say is," Ochako stuttered as he tried to get the words out. "We all want to date you and have a crush on you," Tsuyu said out loud. "What she said," Itsuka said with a blush. Izuku nodded to show that he understood and then stopped and blinked. What? Izuku looked at each girl slowly. When he looked right into their eyes, they all nodded and turned pink. The analysis program didn't take long to break down and shut down his systems. In short, he passed out. Izuku groaned as he slowly opened his eyes and noticed that he was lying on something soft and comfortable. Ugh, what a dream. I dreamed that 4 of the cutest, hottest girls I know confessed to me, he said. That wasn't a dream, a voice from above said. It took Izuku a moment to adjust his eyes again before Momo's blushing, worried face showed up. As Izuku looked down, he saw that he was lying on Momo's lap, which she had made into a pillow for him. Itsuka quickly sat Izuku up straight and said, "Oh good, you're awake now. Now we kind of do need an answer." Ochako chirped, "Yay," and looked at Izuku with a serious face. Izuku looked at all of them and tried to figure out what was going on. Soon enough, he was about to mutter when Itsuka poked him in the forehead and stopped him. Although Itsuka had known Izuku for a long time, he stopped him before he could make any noise. A soft voice told Itsuka, "You were about to start over." Izuku let out a sigh and looked up at them all, his mind once more racing. They all liked him. Why him of all people? Izuku asked them why they wanted to go on a date with him to buy some time. All of the girls gave him a blank look, as if to see if he was serious before they agreed to what he asked. "I know Itsuka better than anyone else. We know each other pretty well. But that doesn't mean Momo and Ochako don't know me just as well. Tsuyu and I don't know each other very well, but it's clear that she wants to learn more about me. That's what dates are, right? To learn more about someone. Okay, maybe physical attraction." Izuku thought to himself. No, they are all cute, charming, and hot in their own ways. All of them have hot bodies, which is probably because they work out so much. Then Izuku tried to see it in a different light. Okay, I could see myself dating any of them. What would happen if I imagined Itsuka going out with someone else? He immediately destroyed the mental picture of a faceless man and Itsuka together as soon as he thought of it, feeling bad about what he had done. He felt bad about thinking about that. Does that mean I like Itsuka the most? I've always thought of her like, Izuku thought, a big sister who looked out for me. But now that I think about it, it changed the way I thought when she moved away. He was about to answer when he saw a picture of Momo and Ochako, their hearts broken. This made him pause. As Izuku thought about using the same test on Momo and Ochako, he paled and said, "Oh no, not this." In the end, he crushed the image before it could form because it was too much for him to handle. Izuku thought, "Oh no, I've also fallen for the other two," but then his mind went to Tsuyu. This time, his mind made an image that was a little more complete before he crushed it. Though it wasn't as painful as the other three girls, it was still painful. Izuku could see himself going there with Tsuyu more often. Izuku wailed to himself, "So what do I do?" Because he didn't know how to start responding to the confessions. The girls frowned as they saw the pressure on Izuku's head rise. They thought they had put too much on his shoulders. Thank goodness Tsuyu chose to go ahead with her own idea. Tsuyu asked, "Hiro, how about we all go on a date?" Ochako, Momo, and Itsuka were shocked and yelled, "What?"
Yeah, that might work," Izuku said with a nod before the words. Wait, what came to his mind? "How could you even think that?" Ochako asked with a blush.
"Because it was easy to see the Izuku has feelings for all three of you, and maybe me," said Tsuyu with a blush, but still moving forward. Instead of having him decide right now, he could go on a few dates with each of us to see who he likes best. We all get to have our chance to see who he likes the most, or if there's something between us that could prevent us from really becoming a couple. Mind you, I don't mind doing this because I know I'm fighting an uphill battle against you three, Kiro, having known Izuku the least. The three girls jumped because they knew Tsuyu was late to the game. Plus, can you see Izuku hurting any of us by choosing one? Tsuyu asked me. She's right, Itsuka said. Even if Izuku chose one of us, even though we made an agreement not to be jealous, I know I'd be heartbroken and cry in private. Momo and Ochako looked down because they knew that if they weren't picked, they would probably do the same thing. Most likely, if Izuku had picked Itsuka or Tsuyu, the two girls would have shared a lot of ice cream to feel better. Hiro, so instead of having him choose right now, he just dates us all to see which one of us is most suitable for him, said Tsuyu.
This is a good plan that I can support, Momo agreed. It's a plan. But there's a problem with that, Izuku said, finally getting over the shock. I sort of did a mental test to see what would happen if I let Itsuka go. I crushed the mental image instantly before a body could form next to Itsuka. The same happened with Momo and Ochako. Tsuyu's was a little longer before I did the same. Izuku sighed and sat back down on the sand with his hand on his head. I'm scum. A jerk. A selfish brat. I can't even imagine letting any of you girls go. I fell in love with all of you. I don't want anyone else to date you, or my heart will hurt. He was then shocked when Ochako wrapped his head around her arms and pulled him close to her chest. You are not scum, nor a jerk, or anything bad, Ochako gently said while stroking his hair. If you were, then you wouldn't have saved me back at the entrance exam. You wouldn't have risked your points and your chances to save an ungrateful boy if you were a jerk. You wouldn't have risked your life to fight the Nomu at USJ to ensure everyone's safety if you were selfish. You were one of the selfless people I've ever had a pleasure to meet, a great friend, and the man I fell in love with. If it means sharing you, then I am willing as long as the others are. When the other three girls saw that Ochako was done speaking, they all agreed and edged closer to Izuku, hugging different parts of her to show how they felt. In the end, it may be the best solution for us all, Momo thought. I've seen friendships shattered because said friends liked one person. And I would very much like to keep the friendship we share now. As the heir to the Yaoyorozu family, it was true that she had seen best friends fight over her attention in middle school, with some bad outcomes. It didn't help that her looks and money were big parts of those things. Couples broke up because the girl didn't like how her boyfriend kept looking at Momo. So we're in agreement then, said Itsuka. It's not what I expected, but if I have to share Izuku, then I don't mind if it's with you girls.
Kiro, everything worked out great, Tsuyu said with a smile.
Izuku was shocked and asked, are you girls sure about this? Itsuka asked with a smirk, why don't you want to? 4 hot girls are asking you to go on dates, and you don't want to say yes. Momo said, yes, it would break our hearts. I asked, you don't want to do that, do you? Izuku said, if you're all ready to do this, then I am too. Tsuyu said, good, now give us a kiss. The 5 heard a voice before Izuku could do anything. That was so beautiful. Damn, that was manly.
The 5 quickly turned to see where the voice was coming from. When they saw Mina and Eijiro standing on the sidewalk, they all turned pale.
Izuku was scared and asked, what are you two doing here? And how long have you been standing there? Tsuyu asked. I came here because I wanted to see this beach as it was close by, said Mina. Heard it used to be a dump, but somehow that all changed and is a local hot spot for people to ask each other out, for dates, and even marriage proposals. I wanted to see the view and also plan a time to come swimming here. I grabbed Eiji to come with me. Yeah, I heard about this spot, but about a different rumor about how there was a guy who trained here and took out all the trash. It sounded manly. I was planning to come already, so I thought why not when Mina invited me, said Eijiro. But enough about that, I'm so much more curious about the 5 of you. Mina smiled, quickly coming closer to them. How's it going to go? What's it going to be like? And Uraraka, that was, like the hottest confession I've ever seen and heard. Before it turned into a full-on red blush with steam coming out of her ears, Ochako's face was blank. With a big smile, Mina said, I'm so telling everyone about this. Momo was scared and said, wait, you can't do that. When I was with a boy, it was one thing. Being with a boy who already had 3 girlfriends was another thing. Minia asked, why not? Mina, that could lead to a scandal. That could hurt their career as a hero, Eijiro whispered to her. But Midnight has those sidekicks, the Midnight Boys, Mina said. You don't see that affecting her career. They're all crazy about Midnight, and you can't deny the rumors how Midnight personally rewards them one by one or all at once. Heaved a sigh, those are different things, and you know it. There was time for Itsuka to plan a counterattack while Eijiro was busy. What are you two doing here then? He asked. She shrugged and said, like I said, check out the view. Oh, and you invited Kirishima knowing that this was a hot spot for dates. Did you want him to ask to be his girlfriend, or was it that you wanted to ask him to be your boyfriend? I asked Itsuka. Eijiro stiffened up in shock and used his quirk at the same time as this sentence. Mina flinched and turned red in the face.
She stuttered, no, I said I wanted to see this place.
Oh, and you couldn't have done it by yourself. Itsuka smiled, or maybe invite Hagakure instead. But instead, you chose Kirishima. I wonder what'll happen if I tell that to her. She couldn't hold back her full body blush. With just a few vague words, it's simple to get it wrong. Suyu added, of course, Zero, if you don't say anything, we won't. Grr. Fine, deal, Mina said with a pout. Great, Momo said with a nod. Ochako, are you okay? As everyone looked at Ochako, who had whirlpools in her eyes, she passed out and dragged Izuku with her. Ochako, Uraraka, I can't believe I did that. Ochako moaned the next day as she, Momo, and Izuku walked to school. Izuku replied, I can't believe I'm seeing 4 girls at once, even though he was holding both Ochako and Momo together. Momo said, I can't believe we decided to share, but she didn't feel bad about it. So how are we going to do this? Said Izuku. I mean, I should take you all on dates, right? Do I take you on one-on-one dates? Or 2-on-1? Th. Momo put her finger on Izuku's lip and said, we can talk about that later, after school. We still have some time to figure things out. Soon, everyone was sitting down in the classroom, and Mina tried to look at them whenever she could. They were lucky that Mina sat in front of them all and couldn't look behind their backs. Being right next to Mina meant that Mina could tap on Suyu's desk or pass her notes, which would make her feel like she needed to know more. Shota told the class, well, it's almost time for summer break, but of course, it wouldn't make sense for you to rest for the whole month. Denki whispered to Eijiro, who looked confused, don't tell me. During summer vacation, we'll have a training camp in the woods. Finished up Shota. When this news came out, the whole class cheered with joy. As soon as Mina started to think about the training camp, she forgot about how interested she was in Izuku and the others. Some people didn't like how Mineta kept reminding them about the baths. Some others were interested in what kind of training they would be doing. Shota then used his magic to silence all of his students and said, those who don't pass the final exam before that, will be in summer school hell. Everyone, let's do our best. Eijiro yelled, feeling both excited and nervous. This is stupid, Katsuki laughed as he leaned back in his chair. They all got through the days, which gave them a more peaceful time as students. During that time, Izuku managed to sneak in a few dates with the girls. He went to a new mochi shop with Ochako, the aquarium with Suyu, the beach with Momo alone, a coffee shop with Itsuka, and finally, a movie with the whole group. There was a kiss on the cheek and a hug at the end of each date. They didn't have much time for Izuku to spend with each of them because they were all students and had to study, train, and not have jobs. The last week of June quickly came around, and there was only 1 week left until the end of term exam. At the time of the bell, Shota had just finished reminding them that there would be both a written and a practical test for the hero course. Everyone in the class nodded in agreement as he walked away, and there was silence until. I haven't studied at all. Both Denki and Mina yelled at the same time, but they both responded in very different ways. After taking their midterm, both were in second to last and last place in their class. Not only did they get the worst grades, but they were also last. Mina was laughing, but she might have given up hope while she was laughing. Between the sports festival and my internship, I didn't study at all. Denki said with more panic as he messed up his hair. When he had days off to study, he used them to play video games, so he didn't really notice them. It's true that we had one event after another, but Fumikage, who was in 14th place in the class, said through sweat. He wasn't sure of himself either. Sato and Koji were talking about how stressed they were about the test. Both of them were in the lower middle of the class. Koji was in 12th place and Sato was in 13th. He said with a smug look on his face, it will be hard because there is also a practical exam. In spite of how he looked, he got 9th in the class, which meant he was already doing better than half of the other students. Minia yelled, and here I thought you were one of us. Denki hissed, traitor, where's the demand for this kind of crap? The world, I guess, Mineta said in a stupid voice. Shoto, 5th, told them they could pass if they just paid attention in class, which made them feel even worse. Izuku, 3rd, and Tenya, 2nd, tried to cheer them up, but they broke down in tears. Momo, who got first place on the midterms, said, if you two need help, I might be able to help with the class lectures. They quickly bowed to Momo to thank her and praise her for the offer. They knew that with her help, they had a better chance of passing than if they tried to study on their own. Kyoka, 7th, Honta, 17th, and Mashirao, 8th, all asked quickly if they could also come. Momo happily agreed, but then she slapped them all with how rich her family was with her words. But the fact that she was so eager and happy to help them and that it was cute made it all okay. I don't mind helping out too, said Izuku. It would be harsh to have Momo bear all the load. Momo said, it wouldn't be much trouble, but she was glad to help anyway. Izuku asked Katsuki, do you want to join? As he turned to face him. Fuck off, yelled Katsuki, who tied with Izuku for 3rd place in the midterms. You can literally just jog over to her house with me after our morning workout, said Izuku. Don't care, Katsuki said after shooting. What a difference in virtue, Ajiro, 15th, smiled. I was going to ask you, but I think a study session with them might be better. Katsuki growled, I can do it too. Want me to beat it into you? Because Mina pulled Ajiro over, both Katsuki and Ajiro joined Momo's group in the end. After getting 10th on the midterm, Ochako let out a sigh of relief. She didn't do worse in school because she lived with Momo and could do her homework with her and ask her for help at any time. At the same time, Yuga was denying that he was in 18th place in school. At lunch, Izuku was making plans for the study group's lessons with Momo, Katsuki, Ochako, Tenya, Tsuyu, Shoto, and Toru, who were sitting at the table next to them, when someone hit Izuku in the head with an elbow. Even though it didn't hurt Izuku, it made him mad as he turned around. Oh sorry, your head was so big that I accidentally hit it, Nato joked. I heard you guys met the hero killer. Just like the sports festival, you guys in class A have to have all the attention, huh? You even roped in poor Kodai into it, traumatizing her. But all that attention isn't because people have high hopes for you, but rather because you keep attracting trouble, right? Perhaps you should quit the hero course if you're going to involve innocent bystanders into your rabble. Other innocents might die from your actions. Wouldn't that be sad? Wouldn't it? Wouldn't I? Nito's rant was cut short when Itsuka gave him a good chop to the back of the neck. Geez, I look away for a second and you're already here taunting Class A again, Itsuka said. Seriously, get over it. He beat you in the sports festival even with you borrowing Endeavor's power. Just because your stock plummeted because of him doesn't mean you can take it out on Izuku. With one careless throw, Ituska put Nato on a seat, and his tray landed right in front of him. Even though his wine glass full of grape juice didn't land perfectly, it splashed all over his ribeye and shirt. Are you guys studying for the tests? Itsuka asked, noticing the notes spread out all over the table. Izuku looked at Momo for a second and then said, yes, we're getting ready for a study group. She caught Izuku's eye and asked, did you want to join us? She was happy to have more people over and told him, you can bring your friends too. If you don't mind, I'd like to, Itsuka replied. I got 3rd in my class midterms, and some of my friends asked if I could tutor them. I'll ask if Komori, Setsuna, and Reiko want to join. Yui said she had something else planned. I think most of the guys are getting tutored by Honanuki, Shota, and Shishida. Pony and Abara are studying together as Abara is better at explaining and translating things for her. Izuku smiled and said, that works out fine. Long as that fucking copy shit there doesn't come, Katsuki yelled at Nito. Any idea what the practical is about? Izuku asked, not paying attention to Katsuki at the moment. I asked an upperclassman. They mentioned that it'll be combat against robots like the entrance exam, though much tougher, of course, along with more restrictions, said Itsuka. If it's like that, it shouldn't be too much of a problem, said Izuku. However, have they kept the exams the same as the previous years? Whether it's people or robots, it doesn't matter if you beat 'em up. Katsuki said loudly. If you ask Itsuka, true, she would say, but it's a start. Tenya felt someone tap him on the shoulder at the same time. He looked up quickly and automatically and saw Yui standing there. Ah, Kodai. How can I help you? Is your shoulder alright? It's fine, Thanks, said Yui. Listen, I'm having a little trouble with science. Think you can tutor me one-on-one? Ah, Tenya jerked. He planned to spend most of the week visiting his brother and wanted to study at the hospital while spending time with his brother while he healed. Tensai could finally answer visitors not long ago. On the other hand, he couldn't ignore such an honest plea from a classmate. Plus, that kiss on the cheek that Yui had given him was still fresh in his mind. Please, Yui asked again, and this time her normally serious face changed a little into one that begged. Tenya averted his eyes and looked around before he saw that everyone at Izuku's table was staring at him. Izuku nodded and raised his hand to accept. Tenya finally replied, I'll be busy today and tomorrow, but I'd be happy to help you after that. Yui smiled and leaned over to Tenya's ear. Thank you very much, she said. And please just call me Yui. When Yui left, Tenya looked confused. He slowly turned back to his curry and saw Ochako, Tsuyu, and Toru all smiling at him while making a heart shape with their hands. Toru's was hard to tell if she was doing it because she was invisible, but it was probably safe to assume she was. At the table across from them, Mina looked like she was trying hard not to get too excited about all the juicy romance rumors going around. Afterwards, Tenya looked up from his book and asked, How are you doing, brother? Tensai stretched his arms and said, Doing better. I'm no longer hooked up to a respirator. Speaking of which, I heard you ran into Stain. What were you thinking? Kamui Woods had already told Tensai the whole truth, without any changes. When Tensai heard that his little brother had gone looking for Stain, he almost had a heart attack. I wasn't, Tenya said. All I was thinking of was revenge. The worst part was that it took the villain himself to point out my wrongdoings, along with my friends getting injured because of it. Well, at least you and your friends are safe, Tensai sighed as he leaned back on his bed and waved Tenya over. Tenya did what he was told because he was interested. He moved his chair closer so he could reach his brother when. Arg, brother, stop that, it hurts, Tenya yelled as Tensai put his arm around his neck and pulled him closer while giving him a fist bump. Nope. Not until I'm happy, Tensai said with a grin, and then he let him go. He smiled because Tenya's normally straight-laced hair and face were all messed up because of his noogie. He really thought Tenya was a bit too rigid and unwilling to bend the rules. Tensai was afraid that he would miss out on many chances if he kept going in that direction. Thankfully, it looked like he was beginning to calm down a bit more now. Tenya huffed as he tried to straighten up again. Was that all? Who told you that I'd want you to go get revenge? Tensai asked, making Tenya flinch again. I'm pretty sure I've never called for revenge, she said. I know, Tenya sighed again, feeling bad about herself. But seriously, I'm glad you're okay. I was scared when Kamui Woods told me the whole truth about what happened. You did a great job arresting him, even though you didn't get credit for it. I'm proud of you, Tensai said as he picked up Tenya again and gave him a hug. Brother, Tenya sniffed, trying to keep his eyes from getting wet. Now that I have you here, what's this about a girlfriend? Tensai asked with a grin, sneakily pulling out his phone to show a picture of a red Tenya that Kamui Woods had sent. Soon, Tenya looked just like that picture, or maybe even better, when Tensai figured out the girl's name that made everyone react so strongly. The heroics class was cut short so that the students could study since it was test week. Shota did warn them that just because they were getting out of jail early, they shouldn't forget to study to be heroes. Saturday quickly came and went. Denki, Eijiro, Mina, Kyoka, Hanta, Mashiro, Setsuna, and Reiko were amazed by what they saw as they stood outside the Yayorozu estate. At first glance, they couldn't even see the manor from the gated entrance, which told them how wealthy she was. Taking into account that this was just one of the family's land, it was too much for them. I knew she was rich, but I didn't think she was this rich. Denki looked shocked. Katsuki yelled, "Stop staring and get fucking moving," and kicked Denki and Eijiro forward. They hadn't heard Izuku ring the doorbell or Momo buzz them in when the gates opened. They were quickly led to the manor by Izuku and Itsuka. Izuku promised to send Tsuyu a note later, but she couldn't come because she had to stay home to take care of her siblings. Soon, they were all sitting down in the dining hall with their notebooks open. While Izuku, Kendo, and Katsuki set up a whiteboard and some notes,
The people who had never been here before were getting tense. Katsuki had never been there either, and it didn't matter to him how rich Momo was. Being the #1 hero would make him rich enough. They walked in with a cart full of snacks and tea for everyone when the door opened. "What is it?" Momo asked with a smile. Her happy mood made everyone calm down. "Oh, Ochako, when did you get here? Did you come after or before us?" Mina asked when she saw her. "Actually, I live here with Momo," Ochako said, scratching her head. "I was planning on living by myself at an apartment that my family helped build, but Momo invited me to live with her as she's pretty much living by herself too, just with maids to help clean the place. My parents live kinda far from UA, so it's easier to commute from here." "Indeed, it does get lonely with just me here," Momo said. "My family home is about 2 hours away from UA using the Shinkansen bullet train, the fastest train in Japan. So instead, my family bought this plot so it would be simpler and faster to get to UA." Mina looked at Ochako, then Momo, and finally Izuku. She was shaking because she was ready to say something. Eijiro was able to stop her before she could say anything, which was lucky. Based on their strengths, the subjects were given to Izuku, Momo, Katsuki, and Itsuka. Izuku was in charge of heroic studies and applications, which included the history of modern hero art. Kate took physics and math. English class for Itsuka. Finally, Momo studied Japanese, biology, and chemistry. She could help with the other subjects because they weren't really her weak spots. They all had their own way of teaching, but they all got the information across to each of them. Katsuki was stricter. Whenever they made a mistake, he would hit them all with a rolled-up paper book to show them the right formula to use. He wanted to make the point more strongly by using his quirk, but he was told he couldn't. Izuku told them as they took a short break, "Don't forget that we also need to keep our bodies ready to fight. If we're fighting robots, it'll be easy." Denki, who had an ice pack on his head, yelled. And because he was learning so much, his brain got too hot. Plus, Katsuki hit him several times and hurt him. It was easy for Mina to melt them, even though she had an ice pack on her head. "What if it's not robots?" Izuku asked, making the other two stop moving. "They might change it." "They wouldn't be that cruel, would they?" said Denki. "I can't adjust my quirk that easily." She moaned. "Neither can I. It was easy to not care about control and go all out on robots. The bad guys they fought in USJ were easy targets, so Mina didn't have to use her quirk to attack. She could just punch or kick them. Besides that, she had mostly been defensive and blocked her opponent's attacks." "You can always ask Bakugo for advice," said Izuku. "He's learned how to control his explosion despite his temper." Mina and Denki were shocked as they looked at Katsuki. He, the person in class with the bad temper, knew how to control himself. It didn't seem possible. "The hell are you looking at?" said Katsuki. "I can control my explosions to make sure my opponents are almost dead." "That's not helping your case," Izuku said with a sigh. The days went by quickly, and soon it was time for the test. As the bell rang to end the written exam, Shota told everyone to put down their pencils and told the last person in each row to get the answer sheets and bring them here. "Thank you, Yao Momo," Mina yelled with excitement. "Thank you, Midoriya, Kendo, and surprisingly Bakugo, I feel sure. I didn't leave anything blank, at least," smiled Denki. "Still got my back, wingman." Mina cheered. "Let's have a party." Izuku warned, "Not yet, we still have the practical part. If it's against robots, then we all got this in the bag," said Denki. "Plus, from what I've heard, they haven't changed it before. It would still be wise for us to use this time to mentally and physically prepare ourselves for the practical," said Momo. Mina pouted and said, "Hi, but we're so celebrating after this." "Okay," Momo said with a nod. As a warm-up for what was to come, they all went home and did some light workout and stretching. Some people thought the day of the practical exam would never come, but it did. Soon, all of the students from 1A and 1B arrived at the practical exam area Central Plaza. They were all dressed in their superhero uniforms. Itsuka stretched her legs and asked, "How do you think you did?" "You doing pretty well," Izuku asked as he stretched. "Wonder why we're all here, though."
Are we doing the practical together? Could be, Itsuka said and hummed. When they saw most of the pro heroes of the UA, the other students were also making small talk. Staff show up in front of them. Shota said, now we will start the practical exam. Keep in mind that it is possible to fail this exam, warned the boy. If you want to go to training camp and keep your seat, then don't make any stupid mistakes, said Shota. Kyoko said, there are a lot of teachers. I expect that you all have gathered information about this test ahead of time and have some idea of what you'll be doing, said Shota. Denki was very excited and sang, we're fighting robot warriors like on the entrance exam, right? I got ahead of myself when I said, fireworks. Curry, test of courage. Manga said, yay, and used his quirk to make happy sound effects words. Setsuna added, don't forget the bonfires. A voice from inside Shota's capture cloth, which was around his neck at the time, said, too bad. Nezu spoke up a second later, the exam will be different this time for a number of reasons. Manga had the words, wah 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 wah, pop up above him, sounding like a trumpet making a bad sound. Denki and Mina stopped moving. Nezu then said that they wanted to focus on fighting people directly, so they would be putting together teams of 2 to fight one teacher who had a slight advantage. Either beat the teacher, handcuff them, or get out of the gate was the only way to win. Another thing was that the pairs were already set up, so the students couldn't pick their own. There will be some students from 1A teaming up with 1B, told Nezu. This hasn't been done either, but we as a staff decided to do so since we plan to get most of the exam done. Also, a few more heroes have decided to help us, and some even requested to do it. Some of which are already waiting at the exam area. Best Genist, Edgeshot, and a few other heroes came out from behind the students. Nezu laughed wickedly and said, well, I hope you'll all enjoy and pass this. As the pairs were named, Izuku was paired with Nato, which made him very unhappy. As Nito strutted toward Izuku, he said, well, looks like the best of 1A is paired with little old me. Good luck, and try not to hold me back. Izuku sighed as he walked toward the bus that would take them to their area with Shota. Let's just get this over with. Half of them took buses to get where they needed to go, while the other half was taken to a different place to rest and relax, but they weren't allowed to watch their classmates take the test. Izuku turned around and saw that Ochako was now paired with Itsuka. In the second group, Momo and Tsuyu were put together. Izuku quickly gave Ochako and Itsuka a thumbs up, and they did the same back. Soon, he was in a city with Nieto and Shota. He got a text message from All Might and Nezu on the way there. After quickly reading the message, he blinked in surprise at what it said. It was both of their requests that One for All not be used for this test. Izuku thought about the request for a while before deciding to say yes. He was sure there was a good reason, and not having to force his technique would let him focus on it more. Shota quickly and lazily went over the rules of the test, let everyone know what the handicap was, and explained how to win. When Izuku saw the ultra compressor weights, he thought out loud, that looks like something I can use for training. He then asked if he could get some. As long as you don't overdo it, said Shota. Feel free to ask Hatsume for some. The other teachers and I will be strapping weights equal to half our body weight. Izuku was interested and asked, isn't that a pretty big disadvantage? Shota didn't pay attention to them and then led them to the starting point in the middle of the area. Team Midoriya and Monoma, practical exam. Ready, go. They both ran for the exit as soon as they heard the words. Nieto asked Izuku, hey, aren't you going to let me borrow your quirk? This made Izuku very angry right away. When we get closer to the gate, you have a time limit with your quirk, so if you borrow it now, we're just wasting precious minutes, said Izuku. Nieto hummed, fair enough, and frowned inside. To be honest, he wanted to stop Izuku. He did just enough to look better than Izuku, not enough to fail or even worse, bring himself down. He saw how Itsuka, Ochako, Momo, and Tsuyu looked at Izuku. He knew that there was a problem between them all. It would be like a pimp if Izuku played with their feelings. Nieto didn't feel bad about letting Izuku fail. I think we're close enough, Nieto said, remembering which buildings were closest to the exit. Izuku stopped and looked everywhere, even up, before nodding his head to agree. Shota hid behind a chimney a ways away and smiled a little. A lot of people didn't know that when they were looking for someone, they could just look them up as part of the search. Because they wouldn't look up, he couldn't keep track of how many criminals he caught off guard. He was ready to sneak up on them in silence while standing on some utility poles when he saw Izuku begin to look up. Shota quickly jumped towards some buildings to get out of Izuku's line of sight. In his mind, he took away points from Nato for not doing the same thing. Even if Nato copied Izuku's quirk, it didn't matter. With a quick look, he could erase it. Also, another thought about Nito's need to copy quirks a lot. That is something he needs to talk to Vlad about. Izuku put out his hand and told Nito to hurry up and do what he needed to do. Things quickly went wrong here. Nito felt something was wrong as soon as he grabbed Izuku's hand. Most of the time, copying quirks gave him a thrill. This was always the case with any quirk he copied. The only quirks he couldn't really copy were ones that made things pile up, but he could still feel that energy surge. But Izuku's burned him. When Nito pulled his hands back, he saw that they were red from being burned so badly. Lucky for us, there were no real burns. There was just a small area of red skin that wasn't really first-degree burns. "What the hell is wrong with your quirk?" Nito asked. What are you?" Izuku looked at Nito's red hand and blinked in surprise. He also didn't think that would happen. He was the only person in the world, though, who had a devil living inside them because they ate a devil fruit. He might have punished Nito because the devil inside him didn't like what he was trying to do. As Izuku said, "Sorry, but I didn't know that would happen," he was truly sorry. When he was about to say sorry again, his ears picked up something. It sounded like roof tiles were moving around. When Izuku realized they might have been seen, he tried to jump backward so they wouldn't be a stationary target. He was in trouble because Nito wasn't done with him yet. Nito grabbed Izuku's arm and stopped him from jumping away by not using his quirk. "You're going to explain what the hell that was about?" Nito demanded, his mood still a bit tense. Shota was then able to wrap his capture tape around Izuku and pull him up over some power lines that he had let the tape go over. Izuku was soon left high in the air with his arms tied behind his back. When Shota turned to deal with Nito, he saw that he had already left as soon as Izuku was caught. This made Shota frown. Because Nito had grabbed Izuku, he would not have been able to catch him so easily, even though he had seen Izuku move. Nito didn't try to help or take responsibility for it, though. He ran away, most likely going to the exit without Izuku. Shota wrapped the capture tape around a pole and placed caltrops all around Izuku. "I may have a problem child, but at least he doesn't get another child into trouble and then run away," he said to himself. But Izuku was mad. He was caught, and Nito stopped him. Shota could see Nito running away as he picked him up. He saw Nito smirk and salute him as he turned the corner with his head turned back. Nito was running as fast as he could to the gate. He didn't feel bad about himself. This turned out great for him. In case the teachers asked, he would just say that he thought there was no way to save things and chose the right thing to do. He felt a little bad that he had acted so quickly, but that was it. Shota hummed as he threw more caltrops at the nearby buildings to stop Izuku from trying to grab them. "Now then, what to do with you?
What should I do? What if I fail?" Izuku gritted his teeth as he looked at Shota and tried to figure out a way out.
He had a sudden flash of inspiration. He had never used his quirk before Shota used his in the same area. Izuku's quirk wasn't really a normal one, since the rubber part came from a devil fruit and One for All was a quirk that was passed down to him. He remembered how the people who came before One for All mixed it with the devil fruit. If Nito couldn't copy his quirk, then, after that, Shota might not have been able to erase it. Shota raised an eyebrow when Izuku was able to get his leg up. What does he want to do? Is he desperate? Shota asked himself as he used his quirk, which made his hair rise at the same time. Or did he forget that I can get rid of quirks? Shota's thoughts stopped dead when Izuku kicked his foot at him and stretched out his leg. Shota dove out of the way quickly as the kick hit the wall, right where he was standing. There was shock and confusion in Shota's eyes as he watched Izuku stretch out his other leg while spinning in the air. The speed and force behind it picked up the caltrops and threw them off the ground. Then he stomped on the ground with both legs, which pushed him up into the power lines. Is he crazy? Even though it's just a practice run, that's dangerous because those power lines still have electricity in them that could shock someone. He's made of rubber, though. He's not going to get shocked, Shota gasped as Izuku broke through the power lines and didn't care that sparks of electricity hit him. When Izuku landed safely on the ground, he looked up at Shota as he pulled the capture tape off of him because it wasn't wrapped so tightly around him anymore. The hell? Shota asked himself as he got ready again. Even if your quirk is a mutation type, you shouldn't have been able to stretch under my quirk. How did you do that?
Trade secret, Izuku thought to himself. I guess I only have one thing to do now.
Shota jumped back right away because he thought Izuku was going to attack him. He didn't think Izuku would turn around and run away.
Shota quickly jumped up on the power lines and ran along them to get to the exit. Shit, he cursed. He quickly found Izuku and tried to capture him again, but the target was always getting away, turning in ways that shouldn't have been possible while hitting walls and poles. But when the buzzer went off, the chase was over in 30 seconds. Team Midoriya and Monoma pass. Shota and Izuku stood still for a second and then looked at each other. Shota said, "Follow me, and I'll tell you your grade when we get back."
Izuku followed Shota with his head down and arms by his side. He gave him a sad nod. Nito was smug when the two people got close to the exit. "Yo, good distraction partner," joked with Nito. "You really did something useful." Shota told them, "Get on the bus. You'll get your grade later." After a few minutes, they got back to the central plaza. Shota led the two of them into a room and told them to wait there. Monoma started to make fun of Izuku again, but Izuku didn't pay any attention to him. Once more, Monoma told him that he would probably pass while Izuku failed because he had done all the hard work. This did have an effect on him. Vlad, Shota, Nezu, and All Might walked into the room with serious faces at that moment. Usually we tell the students whether or not they passed the practical and the written exam the next day. However, Nito Monoma, explain to me right now why I shouldn't expel you for your conduct on the exam, said Shota with a serious look.
When that was said, Nato stiffened up and his face turned pale.
Whoa, isn't that harsh? Said Vlad, you told me something went off on the exam, but why are you threatening to expel my student? Clearly you've coddled your students, said Shota. Monoma here sabotaged my student, leaving him as bait before running off to the exit by himself without a look back. Surely you're exaggerating, Vlad said as he coughed and looked at Monoma and then back at Shota. I can't imagine Monoma doing something like that. He's always trying to bring my class together. Specifically your class, said Shota. He's always at odds with mine. But in this case, I saw it with my own eyes and I have video proof. Shota showed a video clip of Izuku jumping back to avoid being hit by Nito. What happened next was pretty clear. Shota stopped the clip when Izuku was pulled up.
Monoma. Vlad whispered, not understanding what Nato had done.
It wasn't my fault. Nito was scared. I was confused why I couldn't copy his quirk. His skin burned me when I tried to, see. I just wanted to know. I never meant to intentionally sabotage him. When Nito tried to copy Izuku's quirk, he stuck out his hand to show how badly it was burned. Maybe not on purpose, but by accident. You seemed fine with that when you ran, Shota said with his eyes narrowed. It seems to me that we will discuss this further, Nezu said. Midoriya, your grade will be put on hold for now until further discussion. Monoma, I'm quite disappointed in you, as is your homeroom teacher. When Nito looked up, he saw that both of their faces were sad. He then looked back down, not wanting to see those faces any longer. I cannot, in good conscience, expel you. After all, you are still heroes in training, and the fact that a quirk has burned you like this must have been a first. I've read and analyzed your quirk. You're able to copy any type, even mutations, growing such limbs for a few minutes. To have such a panicked reaction is understandable. Your actions after, however, are not. Not only did you not even attempt to save your teammate, but you left with a smirk, and from what Aizawa has told me, continued to taunt and mock him afterward. Your grade will be up to both homeroom teachers to decide whether you pass or fail. Vlad, if you can take him back for now, Nezu said. When Vlad said, yes, he gently pushed Nato out of the room and shut the door behind them. I think you had something else to say, Nezu asked Shota this time. Yes, Shota said before hitting play again. As you can see, I cannot erase Midoriya's quirk. Which leads me to the next question. Just what is his quirk? Is it even natural, or was it something artificially grafted into him and made to look like a quirk? It was up to Nezu and All Might to decide if they should tell Shota the truth about Izuku's quirk. That it was fake, because it came from a devil fruit. In his spare time, Nezu had tried to find more of these fruits or find someone with strange abilities who couldn't swim. Things have not gone well so far. Before anything else, Midoriya, can you try using your quirk again under Aizawa's quirk? This time use all of it, said Nezu. When Izuku opened his eyes, he saw that Nezu wanted to test whether he could still use one for all with his rubber body. As Shota looked at him with his quirk on, he quickly spread one for all over his body, letting arcs of lightning cover him a little. Then he stretched his fingers out. To his surprise, not even one for all had been erased, even though Shota had tried to delete something. I thought so, Nezu said. I was curious if Midoriya's quirk could be erased or copied. Clearly neither works. As for how, that's private information that only a select few can know. All Might and Recovery Girl are aware of the full story behind Midoriya's quirk. As for young Midoriya himself, how would you judge his grade? As his homeroom teacher, I should be on a need-to-know basis, asked Shota. And I am aware that you are able to keep your mouth shut, but this secret must be kept within a small circle. If Midoriya is willing to explain it to you, then it is his choice as it is his secret. I, as principal of UA, will not divulge a student's secret unless given express permission, said Nezu. Shota looked at All Might, then at Izuku, and then said, fine. As for his grade, I would have graded as passable. Despite being caught, he was able to escape my trap, if only because of his surprise quirk factor. He maintained a moving unpredictable target, never allowing me to get a good shot to capture him again. I would have thought he would try to fight me one-on-one, seeing as I was handicapped as he also has a strength factor. I assume that one of you two told him not to use it for this test. Shota sighed even more and said, do whatever you want. Personally, I'd have him retake it with another partner, preferably the one I chose for him. You pushed for this team just to see if my quirk and Monoma's quirk would work, didn't you? Nezu and All Might whistled to the side in defense. I stated my reasons in our meeting, and everyone seemed to agree, said Nezu. Shota gave Nezu a mean look and then left the room. All Might let out a huge sigh of relief as he changed back into Toshinori Yagi. It was Izuku who asked, so what happens now? Personally, I would advise you to take the exam again, said Nezu. But it's up to you. Toshinori said in a soft voice, this is your choice. No one would hold it against you. I want to prove myself, Izuku said strongly. The reason why I chose not to fight Eraserhead was because I wanted to make sure Monoma was alright and he had the cuffs with him. But I barely did anything. Who will I be going against, and who will be on my team? Luckily there is one person that requested to be your opponent for the test, Nezu said. As for your teammate, I will tell you after everybody else has finished. Most likely we will choose someone who failed but was very close to passing. So for now, just go and get some rest. And not a word to anyone for now. Izuku gave Toshinori and Nezu a nod and then left, leaving them alone. Toshinori asked, I think everything is going the way you planned? Oh indeed, said Nezu. The probability that Midoriya's quirk couldn't be erased or copied was quite high, the chance being 90%. The results of the other fights have already finished, and again, are within my calculations. As it stands, the final results will play out just as planned. Toshinori said with a straight face, you are scary when you're bored. Izuku sat down on a couch while he waited for the practical exam to be given again. With whom would he be paired? With whom did he fight? He passed, so could he still go to training camp with everyone else? He was sure that Itsuka and the others would pass, but what if what happened again was like the last time? The teachers would never let something like that happen. Katsuki cursed, son of a motherfucking asshole, as he sat down next to Izuku out of the blue. Izuku was shocked and asked, Bakugo, what the hell are you doing here, Deku? Made Katsuki swear. I was sitting here first when you suddenly sat down next to me. Did something happen to your exam? Izuku asked me. Nothing happened, said Katsuki. I was heading towards the exam area when I was suddenly told to head back here. Fucking Mantis Head was sneering at me when I came back. We were going to fight Best Jeanist. One of the top ranking heroes, damn it. I was going to show them what I can fucking do. Izuku groaned and pinched the bridge of his nose. Then why did you? Oh please tell me they're joking.
Katsuki asked. Who are you kidding? And where is your test?
Monoma unintentionally sabotaged me by forcing me to get caught and ran away with a smirk, Izuku said. I managed to break out, but I didn't get to do much before he made it to the exit. Monoma, isn't that the copy shithead that you destroyed back at the sports festival on the first round? Did you get partnered with him? Wait, did you fail? Katsuki was curious. Technically no, because of how it went, they're going to have me retake the test, said Izuku. Apparently there's another pro hero that wants to test me out. I'm going to taking it with another person. Well shit, who's the, oh god fucking damn it, am I supposed to be on your team? Is that why they pulled me out? Katsuki said loudly. Probably, Izuku said. Why they're putting you on my team is anyone's wonder. Probably because we wouldn't work well together.
Katsuki yelled. Damn right we wouldn't. The two of them let out a sigh as Izuku reached out and grabbed 2 drinks from a nearby vending machine. He then pulled back. He gave Katsuki one, and she took it without saying anything.
Katsuki asked, do you know who we're going to fight?
No idea, Izuku said. TCH, better be someone good, Katsuki frowned.
Is there any chance we could at least talk about tactics? Izuku asked. When Izuku said that, Katsuki gave him a blank look. I didn't think so, Izuku said. Then I'll just ponder my plans and thoughts out loud. He laughed at Katsuki, but she didn't stop him. As Itsuka walked into the viewing room to watch other students fight after finishing her own early, Momo asked, where's Izuku? I thought he was with the first group, Momo said with a blink. Itsuka replied, I thought the same thing, but he hasn't shown up at all.
I hope he's okay. He might be in one of the medical rooms, Ochako said with worry.
Hiro, wasn't he teamed up with one of your classmates, the one with the copy quirk? Said Tsuyu. Itsuka blinked and asked Yui and Setsuna, have you seen him? She then asked Monoma, where is he? I haven't seen him either. The other 2 people replied by shaking their heads, and Setsuna winced when she saw what was happening on one of the screens. Says Setsuna, ooh, Kamakari, bad idea, as Kamakari tries to cut through a bunch of strings left by Best Jeanist and gets tangled up when one string trips him up before they all wrap around him. The fact that Kamakari couldn't cut the string shocked him. It was actually several strings twisted together to make him think it was just one. They quickly wrapped around him before he could do anything. Another member of his team, Shinso, tried to pull Kamakari back by wrapping his capture cloth around him, but he had to give up on that plan because of more fibers. Over time, more and more students were either sent to the medical bay to rest or heal or made their way to the viewing room to watch their classmates.
Mama asked as she looked around and saw that most of the screens were now blank. Isn't this everyone?
Where is Deku? He shouldn't still be missing, Ochako said with a nod. Hey, isn't that him? Pony asked, pointing to a screen that showed Izuku and Katsuki walking into an exam site that was set up like a city.
Itsuka screamed, he's teamed up with him of all people.
Saburaba asked, where is Monoma? I thought he said he was paired up with Midoriya. Hyoka asked with a hum, who are they fighting? Katsuki yelled, who the fuck are we facing? As Nezu led them to the middle. Nezu then turned around and said he wasn't the one facing them. Izuku began to jog in the direction of the exit and said, don't know, but we should start going that way. To correct himself, Katsuki said, fuck you, why the hell should we run? I want to fight and beat my opponent. Because it's more likely we'll meet him or her at the gate, said Izuku. After being about to answer, Katsuki suddenly stopped talking and said, stupid logic. I would have gotten it too, Deku. As they jogged to the door, they were paying attention to everything going on around them when they heard a log. As soon as the flames shot between them, they both jumped to the sides to avoid them. Endeavor stepped forward calmly and said, "So, at least you two have quick reflexes. Let's see what you can do." Izuku took a deep breath and tried to calmly figure out what was going on. When Katsuki saw Endeavor, she smiled in a mean way. "Change number 4 to number 2. Yes, he would take this."
Shoto was shocked and angry and yelled, "What is he doing there?"
"Shuto, you're on fire," Tenya yelled as flames shot out of Shoto's left hand. Shoto looked at Nezu, who had just come back, and asked, "Why is he here?" "He requested to be the one to test Izuku Midoriya," Nezu said simply. "I saw no reason to deny his request. If it worries you, we have All Might on standby in case Endeavor takes it too far. That, and probably a big donation that I made him give to the school because I asked him to," Nezu said with a laugh. Even though Izuku dodged Endeavor's attack many times, he winced as he felt his skin turn red. He tried to counter Endeavor with a bigger blast of flames, but unlike Monoma when he copied Endeavor's quirk, he just tanked or dodged the shock waves without much trouble. Katsuki huffed because his sweat glands were working too hard. His explosions were being blocked by fire blasts that were even stronger. Either he turned up the explosions even more than usual, or he had to hope that Endeavor would run out of power first. From the outside, it looked like the second one wouldn't happen anytime soon. Endeavor fired another stream of fire and said, "You guys are getting boring me. Either do something new or I'll end this, by force or time."
Izuku quickly looked at the watch Momo had made for him and saw that it was already 20 minutes past. He began to scratch his head, trying to figure out what they might be able to do.
"Do not think that just because you fought a boy with a copy of my quirk that you can use the same strategies," Endeavor yelled as Izuku tried to use Song Smash and was knocked off balance by a beam of fire. "Neither can my son." Katsuki had tried to attack Endeavor in the face, but Endeavor grabbed him out of the air and slammed him to the ground without even looking at him. The impact broke up the ground and left Katsuki out of breath. He tried to defend himself but Endeavor kicked him away, slightly burning him in the process. Katsuki's attempt to blast him didn't help, the explosion hit him instead. Pointless. If this is the first and second place of UA's sports festival, then the future looks bleak, Endeavor said loudly. As he spoke, he was slightly impressed by how strong they were and how determined they were to keep fighting. Just a little, though. Look at the Straw Hat Boy. I think the name of his hero should have been Izuku, Deku Midoriya, or just, Deku. Endeavor thought, the fact that he was able to move even though Stain's conviction shut everyone down says a lot. After that, he would say that maybe he had judged Izuku too quickly and that he shouldn't have done that interview to air his small grudge. Especially when All Might is present. Endeavor knew that All Might had been glaring at him since he got back to the UA. "Bro, this isn't working, and time is running out," Izuku moaned as he stood back up. It was Katsuki who said, "If you're thinking of fucking running, go fuck yourself. It is technically still winning, but that's not the point," Izuku said. "We've been fighting individually, without really working together. We did it before against Stain a bit, we should do so again." Katsuki yelled, "I'm not going to follow your lead."
"I didn't say I was going to lead. I was going to suggest that you lead and I back you up," said Izuku. "Long as we can either cuff him or beat him, we still win."
"Think you can follow up with me?" Katsuki asked with a slow smile as tiny explosions danced on his hands. Izuku replied with a smirk, "I've worked out and fought with you before. I fought with you against Stain. What makes you think I can't?" It asked Endeavor, "If you boys are done talking," and then it fired another round at them. Both of them dodged again right away before rushing at Endeavor. Endeavor had to focus on Izuku first because he took the lead so quickly. Izuku quickly ducked and then made another set of sharp cuts at him. "This again," thought Endeavor as he tried to find Izuku again. For some reason, this move was really annoying because it made it easy to lose track of Izuku. As a response, Endeavor let his flames spread out all around him, covering a full 360 degrees as soon as Izuku got close. This made Izuku back off. At that moment, Endeavor saw Katsuki running at him, speeding up with his blasts. For that reason, Endeavor fired another blast at Katsuki, which made him change directions and shoot up in the air sideways. Endeavor knew this was going to happen and had already figured out where Katsuki was going and how long it would take him to change again. But all of a sudden, Izuku showed up and grabbed Katsuki while she was spinning in the air. She then fired a Katsuki missile straight at Endeavor. While Endeavor was leaning back to avoid Katsuki's attack, Izuku used his spin to stretch out his foot and hit the floor in front of Endeavor. The kick made the cement under Endeavor tilt up, which meant that Endeavor had to block instead of swaying back. Katsuki let out a roar and fired an explosion right at Endeavor, which made it skid back a bit. Endeavor looked up and saw that Izuku's foot that he had sunk into the ground was still there. He quickly pulled Izuku back. Izuku was thrown low toward Endeavor's knees by the retraction. Endeavor jumped and was going to use a fire fist to hit Izuku in the ground, but Katsuki gave him a wild kick instead. Stun gun. Just as Katsuki's kick missed, Katsuki put his hands on Endeavor's face, blinding him for a moment. Endeavor was able to close his eyes and cover his eyelids with his arms before the flashbang hit him in the face. He then threw himself away with flames from his foot. After quickly landing on the ground, Endeavor was able to clear his vision enough to see that Izuku was launching a barrage of fists at him, but not actually hitting him. He was setting up Song Smash. And Endeavor yelled back with a lit fist, "Foolish. Lightning fist a jet burn." A bright stream of fire came at Izuku and melted the road as it went. One could tell right away that this attack was faster and stronger than Monoma's. But just as Izuku pulled his arms back to attack, Katsuki landed next to him and pointed his grenadier bracers at Endeavor. Katsuki pulled the pin right as Izuku launched his attack, without question. Smash and explosion. The combined attack hit Endeavor's attack, which caused an explosion when they met. Endeavor stood his ground and looked out carefully for any attacks that might come next. After all the chaos was over, he couldn't find either boy. Since they had switched places because of the fight, Endeavor thought, they must have run away. The boys moved themselves so that they were between the exit and Endeavor instead of behind it. They then used the attack as a smokescreen to hide their escape. Clever brats, Endeavor said as he rushed forward. In reality, though, the boys were much lighter than Endeavor, which was able to handle the explosion and was thrown backwards toward the gate. Izuku took a deep breath quickly and his body swelled up like a rubber ball. This let him bounce on the concrete floor before he deflated and landed back on his feet. Katsuki fires a series of explosions to slow and control his fall to the floor. He rolled to help stop the momentum, but he still landed a bit hard. He coughed and saw that they were getting closer to the exit because they could now see it. "Not what I thought it would be, but this works," he said. He stomped forward and barked, "You can fucking go, I'm fighting Endeavor and winning. You do remember that running through the exit also counts as winning, right?" said Izuku. "Not to mention we're running low on time. Endeavor is number 2 for a reason. I doubt we can beat him with 5 minutes left. Or would you rather risk failing the exam and possibly losing a spot to the reserve student?" Katsuki stopped moving his right foot, which was still in the air, grumbled, and turned around. When Katsuki stomped toward the door, she said, "Let it be known that it was my choice and my choice alone." They couldn't get out because Endeavor crashed right in front of them. Without the boys being able to do anything, Endeavor grabbed both of them by the heads and threw them into the building, Katsuki to the right and Izuku to the left. The doors that both boys were thrown into were broken through. Following a short time, Katsuki sped out of the building with a loud roar and shot. Endeavor easily blocked Katsuki's attacks and wondered why Izuku hadn't shown up yet. Izuku jumped out from the second floor of the building with a 3-shelf bookcase and threw it at Endeavor as Katsuki tried to hit him in the head with a jumping right roundhouse kick. Katsuki hit Endeavor with an arc kick, but Endeavor dove under it and fired another blast of fire at the bookshelf, destroying it. Katsuki's roundhouse kick stopped in the middle of its swing, landing right on top of Endeavor's head. He then twisted his body so that his heel faced the sky and his metal-tipped combat boot faced Endeavor. Katsuki yelled, "Die!" and changed the direction of his kick, hitting Endeavor in the head. Because of Katsuki's quick change of attack, that attack should not have had much power to stop Endeavor. But Katsuki had been able to make his boots a little better. His boots could also keep his sweat in, just like his bracers. His boots had small holes built into them at the heel and toe so they wouldn't stick out. And there was an explosion from the heel hole that made Katsuki's kick go down so fast that Endeavor hadn't had time to react. The attack temporarily knocked Endeavor out, but she was able to get up and jump back to stop Katsuki from going after her. He jumped right into Izuku's stretched out body, though, when he did that, Wish found that Izuku's arms and legs were wrapped around his chest, arms, and legs. Entrance began to get hot and said, "Foolish to think this can't," but then he heard a click that stopped him in his tracks. When Endeavor looked down, he saw that Izuku had put big handcuffs on his arms. He could have easily melted it, so it normally wouldn't have stopped him at all. But then the speaker cracked. Team Midoriya and Bakugo pass. Endeavor blinked and thought about what they could have done to win as Izuku let go of him and fell to the floor. No, they didn't get through the gate, knock him out, or disable him. All they did was, he had the cuff put on his arm. "This is what passing looks like," Endeavor asked indignantly. All Might put his hand on Endeavor's shoulder and said, "That's enough, Endeavor. Follow the rules. These boys caught you." Endeavor stared at All Might for a second, then stomped away and shrugged off the hand. All Might laughed out loud. "Good job, kids. Now let's get Recovery Girl to treat your wounds before we do anything else." Katsuki barked that Izuku could have taken Endeavor if they had more time, and Izuku could only numbly nod. He was mad that Izuku had ended the match with a capture, but he didn't think about it too much since they still had less than a minute to go. All of the students made it back to their classrooms and are now waiting for the final decision. Some of the students were looking down, scared that they would fail. All of them were able to either get the bad guy or let someone through the gate, but some of them were caught. When the door to 1A's classroom opened, Shota was there with papers. At that very moment, everyone sat down and nervously waited for the verdict. "Good, good, you're learning not to waste time," said Shota as he approached the front area. "As for the results, congratulations, you all passed both the written portion and practical portion of the final exams. Not that it mattered since you'd all be heading to the summer training camp anyways." Before pausing for a second to think about what Shota said, most of the class cheered happily that they had all passed. Denki yelled, "Say what?" Shota started to explain why they were taking the test and how it was set up to make them work harder. Even though he thought that Endeavor hadn't done it, he thought that the boys had passed, so there was no harm done. Though to be honest, Ashido, Kaminari, Kirishima, Aoyama, you four were very close to failing your practical, said Shota, making those four look down in sad state. Fortunately for you four, you still passed. As for the written portion, Aoyama, you need to shape up, otherwise, you might not last. Okay. Aoyama pouted, and for a moment her eyes stopped shining. As Shota set the packet down on his desk, he said, "I'll be giving out the lodging guides now. Yaoyorozu and Midoriya, could you hand these out and go over the general details of this camp while I go take a nap?" Right away, he curled up in his sleeping bag in the corner of the room and fell asleep. The class started talking about the camp trip and then decided that since tomorrow was a holiday, they would go to the mall to buy everything they would need for the trip. Itsuka asked Izuku, Momo, Ochako, and Tenya on their way home, "Are you guys going to the Kiyoshi Ward shopping mall tomorrow? I'll see if Yui and the others want to come too. It sounds like I need to buy some hiking boots. I'll probably make a list tonight." Of course, it's smart to plan ahead, Tenya agreed. "Anyone from your class fail?" asked Setsuna, putting her head up. "I thought Kamakari and Tetsu were in danger considering they did fall into a trap. Though I guess being able to escape out of it and passing the exam, in the end, helped them out. Only Monoma failed, and Kon-sensei seemed really disappointed at Monoma." Izuku thought, "I guess they didn't show what happened, which is also a good thing. I really didn't want to talk about how my powers still work even though Aizawa-sensei can erase them." The next day, as most of UA's hero students stood near a clock tower where they had agreed to meet, Mina exclaimed, "And here we are. The Kiyoshi Ward shopping mall. It has the most stores in the prefecture and is also the newest, coolest, and most advanced." Many sports fans who remembered the sports festival paid them a lot of attention. Soon,
They were all talking about what they needed to buy. Then, Eijiro suggested that they just go their separate ways to get what they needed and then meet back up at 3 at the same place. Everyone agreed, and then they quickly spread out. Momo and Setsuna went to get carry-on bags with Jiro. Kosei and Mineta were going to a hardware store to buy some small drills for selfish, perverted reasons. Mine and Eijiro went to look at some camping gear. Tenya was about to walk into the clothing store to buy new pants when he felt someone pull on his shirt. He saw Yui right behind him when he turned around. "I need to buy some clothes, too. Do you want to come with me?" I asked Yui. "I would be happy to provide assistance. What do you need?" said Tenya. "Some shirts that will last for the camp lodge," Yui said as she pulled Tenya along. "Also some new swimwear. What do you think about that?" "There's no need for such thing at the camp," Tenya said. "I don't believe we'll be swimming anytime there." "Who said it was for camp?" Yui asked, her calm face not breaking. "Maybe I just wanted to hear someone's thoughts or save it for later. Plus, I can always make my swimwear smaller and tighter around my body." But, I dare, Tenya said, now following Yui like she was supposed to. Soon, Itsuka, Ochako, and Izuku were the only ones left. "What are you planning to get?" said Izuku. "I was originally planning to get some wrist weights for training until I managed to put in a request for those ultra compressor weights. At most now I'll probably just shop for some shirts and pants. Maybe some shoes like Kaminari had planned." "Oh, I believe I need some bug spray," Ochako said. "I should get that too," said Itsuka. "Wanna check out the survival kit store over there? I saw an ad saying that they were discounting everything off by 20%. "Let's go," Ochako yelled, pulling Itsuka along with her. "Deku, do you want to come too?" Izuku waved and smiled. "I'll catch up. I need to quickly check out that store." "Okay, but hurry up. It's not often we get a chance alone with you with all our school work," Itsuka said. But before they could leave, a voice came through. "Oh wow, you're all from UA High, right? Let me have your autograph. You're the one who fought the explosion guy, right? And you two were the ones with those cool moves," said a stranger in a black hoodie. Izuku's face went pale all of a sudden, then turned angry, and Ochako was about to blush. Before Ochako could figure out what was wrong or even try to get away, the hand snaked up to her neck and put all but one finger on her throat. "And you, Izuku Midoriya, ran into the hero killer, didn't you? I can't believe I'd see you in a place like this again, almost like fate, or destiny. But from your perspectives, we haven't met since the attack at UA, huh? Why don't we have some tea?" Shigaraki smiled broadly. Itsuka and Izuku's fingers twitched, and they were angry that their best friend was being held hostage. Now, just act natural, like I'm an old friend. I'm only here to talk, that's all. Though if any of you try to do something funny, then all 5 of my fingers will touch this girl's neck. She'll start crumbling from the skin of your throat, and in less than a minute, she'll be turned to dust, said Shigaraki. "A hero will catch you," Ochako said timidly. "Deku will stop you if you do it." "Maybe, but I'm pretty sure I can get more people before he catches me. All these people in this crowded area, it wouldn't be hard for another 20 to 30 to crumble," smiled Shigaraki. "Make your choice." Izuku let out a growl and slowly opened his fist, and Itsuka did the same. "Fine, but you want to talk to me, right? Let Ochako go, and take me hostage instead," Izuku said. Ochako whispered, "Deku, no," as she felt her fingers getting tighter around her throat. "Who, playing the hero, sacrificing his life for the damsel?" said Shigaraki. "Then stand over here so I can put my fingers on your throat." Izuku walked over and nodded as if he were greeting a friend. Shigaraki then put 4 fingers on Izuku's throat by hooking his arm around him. Now that he had a good hold on Ochako, he slowly let go and pushed her toward Itsuka with all 4 fingers. Itsuka quickly caught Ochako, who was rubbed her throat at the time. Shigaraki led Izuku to a bench, making it look like it was just 2 friends talking, since his main goal had been completed. Itsuka and Ochako could only sit across from them, right in front of Shigaraki. They couldn't do anything because they didn't want to put Izuku's life at risk. "Anyways, I hate everything.
But what pisses me off the most right now is the hero killer, Stain, began Shigaraki. Izuku asked, he's not with you. While remembering that information, even though they had done a lot of damage, Stain stole the show. I didn't acknowledge it, but that's how it ended up on the news, Shigaraki complained before talking about his Nomu. In the end, everyone was interested in Stain instead of him. Not only that, but Stain was getting more supporters than he was. Finally, what was the main difference between them? After giving it some thought, Izuku replied that it was because of how they did things. Stain was adamant about how he did things and why he did them. That Stain's crazy behavior started because of All Might and the world they lived in at the time. Shigaraki gave up on their plan to kill All Might when they lost Nomu at USJ, but Stain stuck to his beliefs. He was never so picky. Someone took a huge weight off of Shigaraki's chest and a huge light bulb off of his head. The hate for Stain and the interest in Izuku. All Might was at the center of everything. Yes, that's right. In the end, that's where I ended up. Why was I worrying so much? These guys can smile without thinking because All Might is doing it, as if he couldn't save anyone. Oh, I'm so glad we could have this talk. It's great. Thanks Midoriya. I don't have to do anything different. Shigaraki grinned big, his dry lips cracking as he tightened his grip on Izuku. Itsuka and Ochako stopped moving when they saw Shigaraki's face. The crazy look on his face made them a little scared. Because Izuku was made of rubber, Shigaraki's grip on him got tighter. It didn't hurt him, but it made it harder for him to breathe. Shigaraki already had plans to use Stain's creed, or set of ideals, as a guide for his own life. You done with your rant? Izuku asked Shigaraki, trying hard not to anger him. Shigaraki thought out loud, yeah, that was an interesting conversation. Now what should I do? Maybe I should get rid of a future threat before it can grow. Maybe I should kill a few more before I run away. Try it, Izuku growled, his right hand already curled up for a flick to Shigaraki's chest, loaded with one for all. If Shigaraki put that last finger down, Izuku would make sure Shigaraki couldn't get away, even if it meant breaking ribs and lung holes. Itsuka and Ochako looked like they were ready to fight Shigaraki if he actually did what he said he would do. Ochako had already slowly taken Itsuka's weight off the ground. She was already putting her foot down and getting ready to throw a huge punch. She didn't care about hurting Izuku because he had already shown that he couldn't be hurt by blunt force. I was just joking. Shigaraki smiled as he let go, getting up to go. Sensei would be displeased that I don't keep to my promises. I'll leave you be with your girlfriends here. Going for a harem ending, aren't you, hero? Not very heroic, is it? Now then, don't follow me, otherwise, I'll get angry. Itsuka and Ochako both ran over to Izuku because they thought Shigaraki might have left marks, but Izuku just shook his head to show he was fine. Izuku hissed, wait, Shigaraki Tamura. What is all for one after? Who knows? Shigaraki asked as he walked away. But more importantly, the next time we meet, it will probably be because I want to kill you. Shigaraki was able to blend in with the crowd after saying that, making it hard for the others to find him. Quickly, the police were called, and they joined forces with active heroes in the area to look for Shigaraki. But he was nowhere to be found. People had gone to the mall early to look for him or any clues, but there were none. Izuku, Ochako, and Itsuka were taken to the police station to be questioned and kept safe. Tsukauchi told them they weren't in any danger. After that, they were led outside, where their parents and Momo and Toshinori were waiting. Toshinori was with Inko and keeping an eye on Izuku while each child tried to reassure their parent that they were okay. Everyone was getting ready to go home when Izuku looked over and saw Ochako going with Momo while Ochako's parents were going their separate ways. They rushed over as soon as they heard what happened, but they had to go back to finish a big project for the Yaoyorozu family. Ochako insisted that Momo would be fine and that the project shouldn't be put off. Momo tried to explain that her parents wouldn't mind the short delay as long as she took care of the family. On top of that, Momo would be there with her. The parents finally agreed to go back, but only if Ochako promised to call them when she got home and again in the morning. Mom, is it all right if I ask Momo and Ochako if I spend the night with them? Izuku said, I want to make sure Ochako is all right.
After what had happened, Inko frowned. She didn't want to let go of Izuku, not even to comfort a girl.
Now that I see it, Mom, why are you dressed like this? The same goes for all Yagi. Why are you both dressed up? Izuku asked after taking a good look. When Inko wore a green dress with sleeves that came down to her knees, it showed a bit of cleavage. Toshinori was wearing a dress shirt that wasn't wrinkled and an overcoat that was the right size for him.
Oh. Toshinori gasped nervously. He didn't know how to tell Izuku that he and Toshinori might be dating now. In fact, they were going to have lunch together before everything started.
It's nothing, I had a lunch meeting with my company and asked Toshi-chan to be my +1, said Inko calmly. As for your request, I guess it's fine only if you call me after you arrive, once before you go to sleep, and once in the morning. Do you have some extra clothes?
Oh, I don't, Izuku said with a wince. I guess I'll still go home. Now, I can drop off some clothes at the Yayorozu estate once I escort your mother home, said Toshinori. It wouldn't be too much out of my way back to my own house. That's great, I'll go tell them. Izuku smiled as he ran over to Ochako and Momo.
Inko knew it was the right choice when she saw Ochako's face light up. The girl needed help, and a good friend was the best way to do it. This is a step toward getting a girlfriend, a daughter, and maybe even grandchildren in the future. There was a chance that Inko didn't know Izuku was seeing more than one girl at the same time, but it didn't bother her at all. For her part, Izuku didn't know she was dating Toshinori, but the shady looks he gave her might have told him something. Toshinori told Inko, "Your face is taking an interesting look." This made Inko change her face back to the way it normally looks when she smiles. "Let's get home," said Inko. "Though we should stop by somewhere to pick up dinner. I'm kind of hungry for something salty. And while we have someone to drive us, perhaps we can get to know each other a bit more, intimately." Just pulling on his collar was all Toshinori could do. He was so nervous and excited about it. He gave Midoriya a suitcase that Inko had packed for Izuku and said, "Here you go."
"Thanks," he said as he took the suitcase and turned to look back at the manor where Momo, Ochako, Itsuka, and Tsuyu were. As soon as Itsuka heard that Izuku was going to sleep over, she talked her parents into letting her. Lucky for them, Tsuyu had done the same thing. They were back from their most recent business trip and would be home for a few days to care for their younger siblings. Toshinori didn't say anything, but he did nod and think back to when he saw Izuku's room. He had so much stuff that he thought it might be good enough to compete with Night Eye's collection. He winced again at the thought of it. He hadn't called his old friend yet because he felt guilty, scared, and unsure. Izuku put his suitcase down and opened it to see his clothes inside. "Did my mom pack my clothes?" he asked, along with his All Might onesies. "PFF," laughed Toshinori when he saw which. He said, "Shut up," but then his mind went back to Shigaraki's words. "All Might, were there times when you failed to save someone?" Toshinori looked at Izuku before sighing, "Of course. Many times. Even now, somewhere in this world, there is someone who is hurt, who needs my help. Yet for all I can do, I'm only human. I can only be at so many places at once. But that is why I stand and laugh. To be a symbol of justice that lights the fires in people, heroes, and even villains." Toshinori gently rubbed Izuku's head and said, "This is the symbol that I think you can become, maybe even greater than me. Now go back and sleep. You need it." Izuku said, "Yes," and quickly ran back to the manor with his suitcase. "You know, I should be freaking out about this, but I'm not," Ochako said as she lay in bed with Momo and Izuku on either side of her. She was behind Izuku, and Tsuyu was behind Momo. All of them were lying on Momo's Texas king-size bed, feeling very comfortable. They were all wearing pajamas that covered their bodies properly. "Well, we did go through that," Itsuka said. "Wish I could have just punched that guy's face." Izuku sighed and scratched his neck. What happened is over, and we're all safe now. Knowing that Shigaraki could kill him with the touch of a finger hadn't made him feel good, but he wasn't going to let Ochako go through it either. His hands were pressing harder on his throat, especially near the end of his rant. He knew that Ochako would have had cuts on her throat if she had been there instead of him. "Are you okay still?" Izuku asked. "Thanks to you," Ochako smiled and said, "I'm safe."
But Izuku could tell that was a fake smile. Izuku asked Ochako again slowly, "Are you okay?" He tilted her head to look into his eyes. The moment Ochako saw the worry in Izuku's eyes, she was about to say that she was fine again. That broke down the damn gates that Ochako had been holding back. She started to cry and hold on tight to Izuku. "I was so scared," Ochako said. "I was scared for my life, scared for my parents not being able to give them the life they deserve, and scared when you took my place." Izuku did nothing but hold her head against his chest and let her cry. Momo gently rubbed her shoulder in circles while putting a soft hand on it to comfort her. I was so helpless," said Ochako. "I couldn't do anything, and in the end, you had to risk your life for mine. I was so weak. I don't think I even deserved to dat." "Shish," Izuku said, knowing where Ochako's mind was headed toward. "Don't say that at all. You're not weak. You went toe-to-toe against Bakugo without hesitation and even made him acknowledge your strength, which is something that's very rare. I know that you're strong and compassionate. Shigaraki caught us all off guard. I blame myself for not catching him in time before he grabbed you." Heaved. "I do too," Itsuka said. Ochako whined. "It wasn't your fault. It wasn't any of your faults. Next time, though, I'll show him not to mess with any of us. We'll all show him and his league of villains that we heroes will bring them to justice," said Izuku. "So don't blame yourself. Use this to motivate yourself to never find yourself in that position again." "I certainly am." As Ochako slowly fell asleep while holding on to Izuku, she nodded. After that, everyone else quickly fell asleep. The first term ended soon, on April 20th. The training boot camp hadn't been cancelled, it had just been moved to a new place that none of the students would know about until they got there. This was done to confuse the bad guys in case they tried to attack again. They were all on summer break, which lasted 40 days. The heroes course, on the other hand, would be working through the summer break, but they would have at least 7 days off before the training camp on the 27th. Izuku was leaving the classroom after finishing his job as vice representative for the class when he saw Toshinori carrying items for the class. Toshinori got excited and said, "Ah, perfect, just who I wanted to see. Will you be busy in the next 3 days?" "Not that I know of," Izuku said with a hum. He had planned to take each girl on a date on those days. "Good. Now then, I'm heading to Island for the Expo as well as some personal business, and I was hoping you would come with me. I received an invitation, and I can bring a +1. Island? Wait, you can't mean that Expo?" Izuku nearly yelled. The world-class exposition showcasing the research and development at Island, where they lead in quirk development. "I'd love to go." "Good, I've already informed your mother about the trip, and she said you can go. And, we kind of have to leave immediately if we're going to catch our flight. Don't forget your hero suit. I already have your other clothes with me from your mom," Toshinori worried. "Say what?"
So that's it for today. I will continue the story in next part. Till then, bye bye.